Toronto, Ontario, Canada. ESPN's Baseball Tonight presents the second-place Chicago White Sox and second-place Toronto Blue Jays. Melito Perez looks for his 13th win for the White Sox. Todd Stottlemyre also after his 13th for the Jays. Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to ESPN's Baseball Tonight. I'm John Saunders. The White Sox have won 3 in a row. The Blue Jays 5 of their last 7, but the Sox are still 6.5 back of Oakland in the West. The Jays 5.5 behind Boston in the East. Meantime, the Red Sox lead in the East had some of its steam removed today as they announced ace Roger Clemens has extensive inflammation in the shoulder joint and 2 tendons in the same shoulder. Clemens will miss at least 1 start. He said today he simply tried to do too much against Oakland on Tuesday.
I just overdid it this time, and I finally kind of met my match. If I, as far as my own self is concerned, I think I found my limitations. If that makes sense to y'all.
Red Sox Dr. Arthur Pappas says a decision on when Clemens can return will be made over the next few days. Now, as Clemens' future this season gets hazy, the Red Sox can take heart. 26 games left. They still have a 5.5 game lead as they host Seattle tonight. In the West, the A's have won 4 in a row. They're in New York. The White Sox and Jays are next. Now, in the National League West, number 1 and number 2 going head-to-head. That's Game 2 of our Friday night doubleheader. Reds in Los Angeles. Jose Rio facing Jim Neidlinger. Both teams have lost 3 of the last 4. That's at 10:30 Eastern Time. And up next is the White Sox and the Jays from SkyDome. And we'll be here all night long on Baseball Tonight, so keep it right here for a Friday night doubleheader.
It's a beautiful night in Toronto as we welcome you to the SkyDome, where the roof is open and the Chicago White Sox are in town to meet the Toronto Blue Jays in a battle of the American League's second-place teams. Toronto trailing Boston in the East by 5.5, Chicago 6.5 behind Oakland in the West, and each team with 3 games remaining head-to-head against the teams that they are trailing. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Zabriskie, and along with Hall of Famer Jim Palmer, we welcome you to Toronto. Game 1 of our ESPN Friday Night Baseball doubleheader. Jim, you look at those numbers and you think, well, each of these teams may be in the same situation. But I really don't think that's the case. Toronto is struggling, and the White Sox have played very well.
Well, they certainly have, and every time they come to the ballpark, they come out to the ballpark thinking they're going to win because of the exceptional year. This is a team that lost 92 games last year. Toronto, the big question, of course, is what are we going to do tonight? Why are we not playing up to our capabilities? If you look up the matchup, the White Sox the rest of the year against Oakland, they've won 6 out of 10. The Red Sox have dominated the Toronto Blue Jays, winning 8 out of 10. Tonight, Melito Perez, he's a 12-game winner. He'll go for the White Sox. Has tremendous talent, but gets out of rhythm. And then another 12-game winner. He's lost 14. That's Todd Stottlemyre will pitch for Toronto. Good pitching match. 2 young pitchers with great stuff.
Now let's take a look at the Sears Die-Hard starting lineup for the Chicago White Sox this evening. Lance Johnson will be in center field leading off. The rookie third baseman Robin Ventura bats second. The left fielder Ivan Calderon bats third. Batting fourth, the designated hitter tonight, Dan Pasqua. Carlton Fisk still going strong at 42, doing the catching and batting fifth. Rookie first baseman Frank Thomas will bat sixth. Sammy Sosa will be in right field batting seventh. The second baseman Scott Fletcher bats eighth, and batting ninth, the shortstop Ozzie Guillen.
Defense for the Toronto Blue Jays. Junior Felix in right. Mookie Wilson, he's a veteran in center. Rob Ducey just called up from Syracuse in left. Kelly Gruber, Tony Fernandez, Manny Lee, a former shortstop, at second. Fred McGriff at first. Greg Myers behind the plate. On the mound, Todd Stottlemyre. This defense have a very good one, second only to the Oakland A's. 76 errors. The Oakland A's only making 74, right on their tear of the Orioles, last year's best defensive ball club, not only in the American League but in the major leagues. They're the numbers for Todd Stottlemyre. Good size for a pitcher, 6'3", over 200 pounds. He's had a pretty good year for him, 12-14, the one-loss record, but the one pitch that he has come up with, Steve, that he did not really show a lot last year was a curveball. Used it against the White Sox earlier, and he was very effective. We'll see if he has that pitch going for him tonight.
His brother, Mel Stottlemyre Jr., Wednesday night for Kansas City, pitched 7 innings of 1-hit shutout ball. So Papa Mel, the Mets pitching coach, has to be very proud. And now both his boys are in the big leagues.
Yeah, Mel Jr. not having a chance to pitch that much, but I talked to Mel Sr., who's pitching coach with the Mets, and I like his stuff. And there's the curveball. Started him right off with it.
Lance Johnson, the leadoff hitter for Chicago hitting .264 with a home run and 44 RBIs. And that one on the inside corner. 1-1.
The reason that curveball is so important to Todd Stottlemyre is that everything else is hard. Slider's hard, fastball's hard, all one speed. Curveball really breaks up the rhythm that a hitter can get at home plate.
Another breaking ball, trying to get him to chase it in the dirt, but it's 2-1.
The problem, of course, with the curveball early on is you come out of the bullpen, they tell you the mounds are the same, they aren't. Feels a little bit different. It's usually a pitch that takes a couple of innings to establish.
Ground ball, Fred McGriff at first, over to Stottlemyre for out number 1. Cito Gaston, who last year when he took over Toronto just turned things around in a hurry, but now is starting to come under a little bit of the same kind of criticism Jimmy Williams faced last year.
When he took over, they were 12-24. They went 77-49 under Cito. There's a wizard. Here's a guy that's getting all the credit. Jeff Torborg, who took a team that lost 92 games, and they're on their way maybe to 92 wins. And what a turnabout.
92 wins may not be enough because of the division they're in with Oakland.
You got to figure that it's not. Oakland already with 86. I think the guideline if you're in the American League West is you figure you got to at least win 95 to be competitive. 100 will probably or more will win it.
Robin Ventura, the rookie third baseman who has struggled, now with a count of 2 balls and no strikes.
I think it's important to understand that Robin went 0 for 41. He took an 0 for 41 streak. Numbers coming in only 232. But when you go up to the plate 41 times and don't have anything to show for it, it's going to put a hurting on your numbers.
Well, you're starting in a huge hole. Tony Fernandez over behind the bag, throws out Ventura, 2 away very quickly.
I think the thing you have to mention is that when you get a young player like Robin Ventura, you have to stick with him. First-year player, #1 draft choice. You bring him to the big leagues, it means you're going to make a distinct commitment to him. And they have done that. He has, made a bunch of errors over at third base, but he's a lot better than what they had.
He's also a lot better, I think, than his 23 errors would indicate. He's made some great plays and shows signs of being an outstanding third baseman. Ivan Calderon having a good year, hitting .290, 12 homers and 67 RBIs. He's also stolen 30 bases, and he has 37 doubles. Good breaking ball. And Calderon way out in front, 1-1. 2 out and nobody on. Slider fouled off out of play.
As you look around the SkyDome, there's the Blue Jay dugout. The roof is off tonight. I really had trouble getting a definitive answer, Steve, whether the ball carries better with the roof open or closed or whatever. They say balls that'll carry in the first inning will not go anywhere later on in the ball game. The wind will hit the back of the bandstand here, or at least that's what it looks like.
This is going to be another one out of play.
And just swirl, and balls hit into the outfield sometimes will hit what they call wind shear, come straight down. So a very, very tough ballpark to gauge whether the ball is carrying or not. We did a game earlier in the year when it was 17-6, Toronto beating Kansas City. Brett Saberhagen on the mound. We knew the ball was carrying that night.
Yeah.
It was rather obvious.
Everybody knew it was carrying. Well, I think it's too early to tell, and I think it really depends on the outside weather conditions when the roof is open. Another one out of play by Calderon, and the count still 1-2. The beautiful CN Tower, and it's just a magnificent afternoon. A little bit of rain here late yesterday and overnight, but boy, it has cleared out, and it's just beautiful. And wind swirling is the operative word with the roof open.
The ball did look like it was carrying during batting practice, but as you said, things can change. Great pitch.
Stottlemyre finally got him with that breaking ball on the outside corner. Chicago goes in order here in the first, no score after a half inning. Look at the Sears diehard starting lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays tonight. Mookie Wilson will be in center field leading it off. Tony Fernandez, the shortstop, bats second. Third baseman Kelly Gruber hits third. The crime dog Fred McGriff hitting fourth at first base. Designated hitter rookie John Olerud bats fifth. The catcher Greg Myers, also a rookie, hits sixth. Rob Ducey, recently called up and a Toronto native, will hit seventh and play left field. Second baseman Manny Lee bats eighth. And batting ninth, the right fielder Junior Felix.
Let's take a look at the White Sox starting defense. Sammy Sosa in right. Boy, he can go get him. Lance Johnson, also a speedster. Calderon dropped about 15 pounds. Good left fielder. Robin Ventura, that we talked about, over at third. Ozzie Guillen, incredibly gifted shortstop. Scott Fletcher, a former shortstop, came over from the Ranger playing second. Frank Thomas, he's a rookie. The venerable, he's about as old as Fenway Park behind the plate. And on the mound, Melito Perez. Boy, it's been a terrific year for White Sox pitchers. Thigpen setting the all-time save record. Perez rebounding from an 11-14 year after winning 12 games 2 years ago when he was rookie pitcher of the year in the American League. But again, some nights he will always bring you good stuff. But his key pitch is that really his fastball that sets up the split-fingered fastball. And if you talk to Sammy Ellis, the pitching coach, some nights he'll have that good rhythm and some other nights he doesn't.
And Mookie Wilson, the first hitter he faced, and Melito puts one in the dirt for ball one. Mookie hitting .263, 3 homers, 42 RBIs, and of course Melito is the brother of Pascual Perez.
Only 24. Stottlemyre 25, Melito Perez 24.
Grounded to first. Frank Thomas, the big rookie first baseman, makes the play at 6'5" and 240, and Wilson is the first out of the first inning. So that'll bring up Tony Fernandez. And again, a big crowd filing in here at SkyDome, as every game the remainder of the season is sold out.
Yeah, that's a given up here. You don't know how they're going to play, but you know a lot of people are going to show up. In fact, booing has become in vogue here.
That's right. That's a new sensation for the Blue Jay fans and the players as well. Fernandez hitting .258. Hits much better here than he does on the road. And he takes a ball low. He hits .305 at home this year. He's hitting .210 on the road.
Yeah, .275 left-handed. And then .226 from the other side. He was talking about maybe exclusively batting left-handed at one point. A very frustrating year for him. In fact, the last 2 years, gifted shortstop. Last year set an all-time fielding percentage with only 6 errors. Right behind him was Cal Ripken with 7. Boy, he thought, you know, a .292 lifetime batting average coming into this year.
Frank Thomas will make the play again. 2 ground balls to first, 2 outs, and we go to the studio for a Baseball Tonight update from John Saunders.
The Jays starting tonight 5.5 behind Boston. Boston hosting the Mariners. First inning, Mike Boddicker to Ken Griffey Sr. This solo home run puts the Mariners up 1-0. Ken Jr. scored the second run of the game. It's now 2-0 in the first. Back to Steve and Jim.
Thank you, John. Boy, I'll tell you what, we talk about Carlton Fisk and guys like that. Ken Griffey Sr. has been on fire since he joined his son.
Well, he's got a competition going there.
That's right. Little friendly rivalry in the family. Kelly Gruber with a shot foul outside third for strike one. Gruber hitting .261, 24 home runs and 88 RBIs, but since the All-Star break, he has not done a whole lot.
About 4 home runs. Of course, he had such an incredible start that you judge him by those numbers. Got hit right on his left, right below his left wristband, right in the back of the hand. Missed about 3 games.
A drive to right field. Sammy Sosa back with room, and the inning is over. Toronto goes in order in their half of the first inning. No score at SkyDome after 1. Thank you, John. Here, we're saving a seat for you, John. It's right there. It's about the only empty one. And it's a ways up there. But there aren't any bad seats here at SkyDome. Those people.
Nor are they any cheap seats.
That's true. You might think those are the cheap seats. Wrong.
More.
Dan Pasqua leads it off. Those people get to sit under the open sky.
Well, that's one of the great lines of 1989. Pat Sheridan with the San Francisco Giants. course, played with the Tigers early on in the year, said that, you know, it's kind of a priority decision. You want to take your family of 4 to the SkyDome or go to Europe. Hot dogs were $7.50 at the time.
Things have changed. It hasn't slowed them down any, though, has it? They're still leading the American League in attendance by a huge margin. And as we mentioned earlier, every game here, and really for the last couple of months of the season, has been sold out. Pasqua hitting .293, 13 home runs, and 53 RBIs. And a breaking ball hit into left center field. Rob Ducey.
Just an absolutely fabulous play, because playing Pasqua around in right center, Mookie Wilson playing him to pull, and if Rob Ducey doesn't catch it on AstroTurf, a sure double, maybe a triple. George Bell, who's been hurt, had an eye problem. No way that he gets to this ball. Look at the flexibility, especially on turf. And you make that comment, but until you go out and run on the turf, trying to keep your balance, it's real difficult to keep your feet under you on artificial turf.
Just a fine play by Ducey to retire Pasqua for the first out of the second inning.
A native from Toronto.
That is correct. Born here in Toronto, Ontario, and still lives just outside the city. So here's the ageless one. Carlton Fisk takes inside for ball 1. Pudge hitting .276, 15 homers, 50 RBIs.
Yeah, those 15 home runs lead the White Sox. Criticism from time to time that Walt Reniak, his style of hitting prohibits you from being a home run hitter. We talk to the hitters for the White Sox. They say what prohibits us is that we haven't moved across the street to the new ballpark. we play in a dungeon. It's 80 years old. There's a guy, his bat prohibited him from being one of the really great, terrific catchers of all time. Fine receiver. Got all kinds of no-hitters. Dodger organization, then caught Bill Singer's no-hitter when he was catching for the Angels.
Carlton Fisk with 351 career home runs. 189 of them have been hit as a Chicago White Sox player, and that is #1 on the all-time White Sox list. Carlton, as of this year, has now played more games for the White Sox than he did for the Red Sox, and the people in Boston may not be happy about that. And Carlton even told me, he said, it's tough for me to realize that, but back in May he crossed over to having played more games in Chicago than with Boston, and he walks.
Of course, the one home run that everybody remembers, the 75 World Series.
Right.
Yes. Now if he hits one, if they happen to get into the playoffs this year, and that's going to be a major scoop with the way the Oakland A's are playing, even though they are very much in the race. It's another one. Maybe people will identify him with Chicago. Used to be 27s, now 72.
Yep, he couldn't get 27 when he came to Chicago, so he took 72. Frank Thomas hitting .276, takes a breaking ball outside for ball 1. Thomas has only had 1 hit in his last 12 at bats, and you look at his on base average, which is outstanding at .408. And he walks a lot, and maybe for a guy this big, he walks too much.
Well, that was the rap on Randy Milligan, who was leading the major leagues before he was hurt about a month ago, but he had 20 home runs to back it up.
Good curveball for strike, 1-1.
I was talking to Phil Bradley, former Oriole, who's now with the White Sox, and he was talking about Frank Thomas. He said he looks so big that people think that he is going to be one of these guys that comes up to home plate and turns on the ball. In other words, a pull hitter. He said he's a lot like Tony Perez, kind of has that uppercut swinging away, drives the ball to right field real well. He characterizes himself as being a line drive hitter. He said the home runs will come, but don't expect me to come up here and try to hit home runs. That is totally against Walt Reniak's theory on hitting.
And you could tell from that swing that he really does subscribe to Walt Reniak's theory, as his hand came off and he finished over his front leg.
There's also the key. There's Walt sitting on the White Sox bench, is eye contact.
Did he hold up? No. It's a strike, 1 and 2, or rather he's gone, and that's the second strikeout for Stottlemyre. Let's get another update from the studio and John Saunders.
Mets losers of 4 straight games, 3 to the Pirates, 3.5 back. Kevin McReynolds against DeJesus slops this one through. Jeffries comes in to score, and New York has as many runs as they've had in the last few games. 1-0 in the first. Back to Stephen Jim.
Thank you, John. Boy, the Mets have had a drought. Well, they've scored about 2 runs in the last 30-some innings.
Yeah, well, Jeffries did not play because apparently hasn't been hitting well. Took the last ball game last night when they lost to the Pirates 7-1 off.
So he's back in there tonight, scores the first run. Sammy Sosa hitting just .235. Second in the league in triples. Check swing. The appeal, no, says the first base umpire Larry McCoy.
Yeah, second to Tony Fernandez, shortstop for Blue Jays with 16.
Fernandez leads all of the major leagues in triples.
We have seen Stottlemyre drop down twice with 2 strikes, and he has recorded 2 strikeouts. There he is again, just a little bit different delivery. More on top on the fastball. Of course, he's also thrown the overhand curveball. Reminds me a lot of David Cohn, who pitches for Todd's father, who's the pitching coach in New York, Mel Stottlemyre.
The Laredo delivery as it comes from down near the border
south. Tough pitch to handle if you're a right-hander, especially if you get it on the outside corner like he's been able to do. You won't see too many right-handers drop down on left-handed batters, only when they're totally confused.
Well, he did it to Calderon and he did it to Thomas, and he got them both to strike out, and they are both right-handed hitters. There is the pitching coach Galen Cisco of the Toronto Blue Jays. 2 out. Carlton Fisk, who walked with 1 out, still at first base. Stottlemyre came back inside with the fastball and blew Sammy Sosa away. No score in the middle of the second. We're in Toronto at SkyDome with the roof open on a beautiful evening. Steve Zabriskie and Jim Palmer with you on Baseball Tonight here on ESPN. Game 1 of our Friday night doubleheader. No score as we go to the bottom of the second inning. Only 1 base runner in the game as Carlton Fisk walked in the second for Chicago. And here in the second, it'll be Fred McGriff, John Olerud, and Greg Myers to face Melito Perez. Well, somebody got a room at the hotel that faces the ballpark, and they're from Chicago.
Well, a lot of people here talking about the fact that they are from Chicago, came in for the weekend series. Toronto, a beautiful city. You know, great ballpark. I think Bob Costas said it best. He said, it's the only place you ever really go into where the game almost seems like it's sometimes secondary. It's so big, so many other things going on.
Yeah, and the first year, last year when they were in here, I think that affected visiting teams as much as fans. Guys were telling me that they just stood around and looked at the place and marveled at it. Fred McGriff hitting .312, having a great year with 32 homers and 79 RBIs. And a fastball popped up in the infield. Shortstop Ozzie Guillen. Oh, it's the third baseman Ventura, who was playing sort of in the shortstop position. 1 away. A reminder, this copyrighted telecast is presented through the authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the expressed written consent of Major League Baseball. On a night when the Blue Jays are in town, those rooms are sold out, even if they are rented just for the evening for the game. Some people don't even spend the night. Fouled back out of play by Olerud, hitting .267, 13 homers and 44 RBIs. A guy who never played a game in the minor leagues.
Yeah, the 16th player to come right from amateur baseball right to the major league level. Last year, the DH hit .216 with 8 home runs and 55 RBIs. So batting average up, home runs up. They said he didn't have enough power. It was too selective. Can you imagine telling a rookie he's too selective? Well, you talked about Frank Thomas.
Yeah. Home plate umpire John Hirschbeck has something in his eye, so Carlton Fisk tries to do the trainer's job.
Well, that's a true veteran for you. Figures that somewhere along the night it's going to help him, either when he's batting or when he's catching.
Tommy Craig, the trainer for Toronto, coming out. See, now John Hirschbeck is a young umpire, hasn't been in the big leagues very long. Carlton says, well, you know, maybe I can set this guy up. Here they are. Hirschbeck behind the plate and McCoy at first. You've already met them. Dave Phillips at second and Al Clark at third.
He's Polish. Hirschbeck is Polish.
From Poland. Poland, Ohio. I wonder if they have a high Polish concentration in Poland, Ohio. 1 ball, 1 strike. John has a brother, Mark, who is an umpire in the National League. Strike on the inside corner, 1-2.
Yeah, John had a tough year. I saw him get crossed up. He was umpiring up in Seattle, and Randy Johnson, 6'10", threw the no-hitter. Melito Perez also with a 6-inning rain-short no-hitter. But anyway, crossed up Dave Valley, took it right in the mask.
Oh.
Was out for about 2 minutes, came back and umpired. Then about a month later in Chicago also had to leave the ball game. So it's been a tough year for him.
Tell you what, when you get a ball fouled off the bat, it's one thing, but when you get one square that nobody has touched, I mean, you are smoked. It's no wonder he was out. And now Olerud asks for time as Perez takes too long. It's 2-2 with 1 out and nobody on. We're in the bottom of the second, no score.
What a wonderful ability it is to be a young hitter and come up and have an idea of the strike zone. Especially as you gain experience.
It's rare.
Well, and the reason I say that is because most hitters, with the exception of the truly great ones like Wade Boggs and whatever, they come up and they figure they have to hit early in the count. They don't want to get into deep counts. They don't want to get 2 strikes on them. But John Olerud, number 1, does have a quick bat. He can hit home runs. And the more pitches you take, a lot of times you'll get better pitches to hit.
You see Carlton Fisk setting up outside, and that's where the pitch was. So it's now 3-2.
For Perez to be really effective, he has to stay away from these counts. He wants to get ahead where he can use that forkball. In other words, a pitch he doesn't have to throw for strikes. 3-2. He's got to come right in there. You saw the fastball. And what do you do when it's 3-2 and you come right after him? Big ballpark. Here, hit my best stuff. I think that's the way you got to pitch a guy like Olerud. You want to get ahead of him. You know, if you nibble, he'll just take it.
That's right.
Same way with Boggs. Same way with a lot of good hitters.
And he took the breaking ball high for ball 4. Olerud's aboard with 1 out. We'll go back to the studio and get another update from John.
Not a good night for Jose Canseco. Got out of his hotel room, went into a cab, told the driver, take me to the stadium. The driver did. When he got there, no one was there. Driver took him to Shea Stadium. When he got to Yankee Stadium, he struck out. Get back to Steve and Jim.
I'll tell you what, those of us who travel around the country in this wonderful world of baseball can empathize with Mr. Canseco's plight.
Yeah, but wait a minute. The stadium is Yankee Stadium.
I know, but listen,
Shea is Shea.
Listen, last week you were not with me.
No, I was.
You were. It was the week before you were. Yeah, last week. How
really
memorable
impressed
you
you last week,
That's
didn't
right.
I?
How memorable you were. Anyway, we were at Shea, right?
Right.
Last Friday.
2
I got
Fridays
the cab.
ago. Get it right,
2
will you
Fridays
please?
ago? All right. Whenever we were there, I got in a cab. At LaGuardia Airport. Now you can see Shea Stadium from LaGuardia Airport, and I asked the cab driver to take me to Shea Stadium. He not only did he not know how to get there, he didn't know where it was. So I can believe that Canseco got taken to the wrong ballpark.
Probably a Yankee fan. He probably didn't even know where Yankee Stadium was.
I don't know if he knew that he was in New York, actually. Probably.
One of those.
Yeah. Greg Myers with a count in 1-1. Fouls it off, 1-2. Myers hitting .254. Of course, then there's a story of Melito's brother Pasquale when he was with the Braves. They gave him a jacket that said I-280 on the back of it, because I-285 actually, I think it was, because when he first came up, he had a car and he went to the ballpark. He thought, and he kept driving around the loop around Atlanta, which is the I-285 freeway, for something like 4 hours until he ran out of gas looking for Fulton County Stadium. Finally had to park the car and take a cab, and he was supposed to pitch that night and didn't. Just missing low. 3-2. Perez with another full count.
Sammy Ellis on our left, Ron Clark in between. Yep, another 3-2 count. I don't care who you are, you usually take a little bit off.
Another ball, 4. Back-to-back walks with 1 out. Runners at first and second.
Got to be a little frustrating because Toronto, if you want to characterize them, fastball hitters, aggressive hitters. Not as aggressive as Cleveland, who has walked under 400 times. The Orioles almost close to 600. That's the difference. A team that takes a lot of walks versus one that doesn't. But Toronto, they like to go up there and swing the bat. One of the exceptions, of course, is McGriff, who popped up early in this inning, and Olerud. You can explain walking John Olerud because he works you if you're a pitcher for a walk.
Right.
Perez walked Myers.
Sammy Ellis to the left, sitting down and watching Perez very closely, the pitching coach of the White Sox.
Well, he said you can tell if he gets a lot of deep counts, he's not going to have a good game unless he's lucky.
And he starts off, Rob Ducey with a ball.
Two best pitchers for the White Sox, Greg Hibbert, who's won 12 games, and then Jack McDowell. And what they did to McDowell was say, listen, just throw your fastball and your forkball, your split finger fastball. And he has gone on a real hot streak doing that.
Curveball and a beauty for a strike, 1-1. Ducey, since he was called up, is 3 for 5. And he's driven in 2 runs. Not to mention the fine running catch he made in left center field in this game. Olerud at second and Myers at first. Not a lot of speed on the bases. Down low, 2-1.
The key to pitching is to make them put the ball in play. You start a guy off with a fastball as he did Rob Ducey, then you drop a curveball off. There's no possible way that the hitter can be looking for that. What you try to do is reverse the counts. Get him to swing the bat early. Trying to get him to do that with your best pitch.
Fastball grounded to second. Could be a double play. Fletcher to Guillen. Not in time.
A good double play ball if it was a little bit closer to second, but because Fletcher had to make that pivot, takes a little bit longer. Guillen had to reach for it. And then a further part of the equation is that Ducey, we've already seen his speed in left field. He runs well, left-handed hitter. See the pivot right there? It takes a little bit longer. Ozzie says, I'm not going to have anybody slide into me. Even though he's so agile, he'd probably just jump right out of it. A little bit closer, he could have backhanded the ball to Guillen. This time they try to get the double play, but Ducey just there a couple of steps ahead of time.
It helps that he runs from the left side as well. Here's Manny Lee, the switch hitter, who will also be batting from the left side, and he takes outside ball 1. Manny hitting .235, but he has hit .303 over his last 9 games.
Talking to Rance Mulliniks, who is a part-time player with Toronto, he talked about you sit on the bench a lot as he has this year. You come as a guy that watches the game and becomes an observer to observe different parts in the ball game where the game turns. Right now, you can see that Stottlemyre, if you're Melito Perez, got good stuff. This is a key situation. He's got to get him out here.
Well, we talked about it before. Sometimes game situations happen in the second inning, not always the 7th, 8th, and 9th.
And you get a feeling for that after you've played the game for a while.
Curveball fouled off out of play down the left side. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And if you are the White Sox and you have seen your pitcher walk 2 guys, they want him to get him out here right now too. I mean, they understand the importance of, okay, I got myself in a hole. Maybe I'll make a good pitch here, and it'll be a meaningless couple of walks.
Runners at first and third with 2 out. Way outside. That looked like it surprised Fisk a little bit. It might have even crossed him up, but Carlton able to snare it.
Well, a lot of times you'll throw a changeup off a fastball. I can't believe that he throws his forkball off his fastball. I think maybe Carlton was just surprised the ball was that far outside. He missed by about 4 feet.
So it's 2-2. And the fastball gets him. Melito Perez comes back to strike out Manny Lee and end the threat. No hits, but 2 left. Welcome back to Toronto. And there's a view through the open roof of the SkyDome. The other night they had the roof open and they had a bug attack in here. They had to stop the game. I guess that's why they opened the roof, let all the bugs in. But of course the lights would tend to attract a few insects. Tonight, hardly any. It's just absolutely lovely. This is a marvelous marvel of engineering, this building. 3rd inning here in Toronto. No score, and the bottom of the order for the White Sox, Scott Fletcher, Ozzie Guillen, and then the leadoff hitter Lance Johnson against Todd Stottlemyre. Fletcher hitting .249. Takes a breaking ball away.
.249, a pretty good average when you consider how slow a start Scott Fletcher had. Right around 200 after about 200 at bats. One thing about Walt Reniak, what he brings to you is work ethics. He takes you by the hand, and sometimes with a little bit of a verbal assault, makes you try to be a better hitter. The only way he feels you can do that is through hard work.
Well, guys were taking turns under the stands this afternoon with Reniak tossing balls to them, hitting them into the net in front of the clubhouse of the White Sox. And he works those guys every day. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Fletcher. Stottlemyre has issued just a walk while striking out 3 in the first 2 innings. Out of play. The Stottlemyres are from Yakima, Washington.
Another #1 draft choice. Perez coming from Kansas City in a trade to the White Sox.
Slicing foul down the right field line and into about the 3rd or 4th row. And a good snare there by a fan. Still a ball and 2 strikes to Fletcher.
Yeah, last year Todd was sent back to Syracuse. The previous year was 5-0. And they felt that he needed a little more seasoning. Also had to get his mental outlook together. Stuff is there. I mean, overpowering fastballs, got the sliders, got the curveball. Throwing a little bit of a split finger. Who isn't? And really, when do you do it? You know, do you do it at the right time? If you look at guys' numbers, they're sometimes so misleading.
Well, that's what it takes time to learn.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, 25, only his 2nd full year in the major leagues. To win 12 games is quite an accomplishment.
Breaking ball fouled off his foot. And a reminder, this is the first of a doubleheader as usual here on Friday night. Game 2 of our ESPN doubleheader will find the Cincinnati Reds in Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers. Gary Thorne and Norm Hitchcock will be along. As soon as this one is completed, we will send you to Dodger Stadium.
Reds happy to get out of San Francisco.
Yeah. They're hanging on, but Dodgers had a chance. Now they've got a much better chance playing them head to head. To make up ground. That pitch just missed, and it's 2-2. See that Todd Stottlemyre has been tough lately. Foul back. Fletcher's hanging tough. He's fouled off a lot in this at bat. Still 2-2. How did you feel, James, when the guy would foul off 8 or 10 pitches? Do you feel like you would have the advantage, or would the advantage swing his way?
Well, I think if the count stays 2-2, you don't want to go 3-2.
Foul down the left field line.
But you know, there are nights when you just can't put away the hitter. You make a good pitch, he fouls it off, and then eventually, of course, what Scott Fletcher would like to have happen, he wants the count to get to a point where maybe Stottlemyre will have to take a little bit off, or if he throws a breaking ball with 3-2, especially leading off an inning, which is imperative to get the first guy out, he won't make it quite as sharp, or has to take a little bit off the fastball. He wants a better hitting situation for him. Right now, Stottlemyre has the edge.
And Fletcher, swinging at a ball in the dirt, strikes out. Let's go back to the Baseball Tonight studio and John Saunders.
Mets with a 1-0 lead for David Cone, but it doesn't last long. Dale Murphy still in the first, sends this one to left field. Lenny Dykstra is coming hard. Dives, slides, and is in there easily. It's tied 1-1 now in the second. Back to Steve and Jim.
Thank you, John. Those Mets 3.5 games behind the Pirates. Those Pirates played them nothing but tough in that head-to-head series. Another big series coming up in New York between the Mets and the Pirates.
Well, there are no series that aren't big when you're 1-2 in all the divisions up to this point. You know, something we talked about in the opening is you look at Ozzie Guillen, is that when you're playing well, even if you're trailing like the White Sox are, you enjoy coming to the ballpark. It becomes a struggle when you come out here and your fans want to know why you can't win. Your manager wants to know. Your general manager also has the same problem.
Slap to Kelly Gruber at third, who goes over to McGriff for out number 2. We talked about how the Blue Jays have struggled to do the fundamental things they need, and it surely showed in that Boston series. Before the game, I talked to Rance Mullinax about that very thing.
To me, there's 2 or 3 different situations that come up during the game that are going to determine if you win or lose that particular game. And you have to be prepared to deal with it. And a lot of that involves experience. And, you know, I watched the Red Sox when they played us 4 games. You can see when there's certain situations come up, they're experienced and prepared to deal with it. Right now, we're just not quite experienced enough to deal with those situations. And over 162 games, it makes it very difficult to play consistently well.
And that's one thing that Mullinax, as you mentioned, Jim, in his role as a part-time player and a very experienced player, one of the more experienced players sitting on the bench, he can see that. But the struggle is, how do you impart that to young players, and especially how do you teach it in the big leagues? You really need to teach those kinds of things in the minor leagues. Lance Johnson, the hitter.
Well, Gene Tennis, who's the batting instructor, says his philosophy is it's not only the Blue Jays, but it's all of baseball.
And I agree with you.
Don't have enough opportunities. There you can see the record. They have not played well in the second half. The opportunities to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the Little League World Series. There are, on that Chinese Taipei team, kids that have better fundamental skills than you see in the major league.
Lance Johnson gets jammed and hits a looping fly ball to right field for the final out of the inning. Chicago goes in order in the third. They have managed only 1 base runner against Todd Stottlemyre. That was a walk in the second.
We showed you Ken Griffey Sr. hitting a home run. Well, here's Junior doing it on the defensive end. Greenwell to straightaway center field. Griffey goes back to the wall, leaps, and comes up with a grab. But the Red Sox are threatening. They have a couple of runners aboard. It's now a 3-1 game in the third. Back to Steve and Jim.
Thanks, John. Welcome back to Toronto, and we're going to have to start calling the Griffies a dynamic duo, I guess. They are doing it all. That's got to be a thrill, father and son to play together. Junior Felix leads it off for Toronto in the bottom half of the third inning. Felix, the 9th place hitter, batting for the first time, and squared around but took it for a strike. Junior hitting .270, 12 homers and 54 RBIs. One and one. Big curveball grounded to second. Scott Fletcher has it. 1 away. Well, a reminder, college football, CFA action here on ESPN. A triple header for you on Saturday. California and Wisconsin get it underway. It all starts at 12:30 Saturday afternoon Eastern time. Clemson and Virginia, and then Miami and BYU in the big nightcapper. That's Saturday CFA football here on ESPN.
Yeah, might as well get it started with a bang.
I guess so.
Miami rated #1 by a lot of the polls. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Something new.
What a surprise. Mookie Wilson takes a breaking ball for ball one. Mookie grounded to first in the first inning.
Well, we've been talking about Toronto and the fact that they don't play as well as everybody thinks they should. They acquired Mookie Wilson. You had a chance to see him with the Mets for so many years. Well, he was very instrumental because he's a good guy in the clubhouse. I think they miss Jesse Barfield. I think they miss Ernie Witt. And I don't think I miss the way that they were playing as much as what you do on a day-to-day basis. I mean, 162 games over 184 days, you need stability.
And you need those intangibles that no team wins if they don't have.
Well, we talked about it last week. Remember when we were together last week, Steve?
It's coming back to
3
me
runs.
slowly.
The Mets came up with 3 runs. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
4-3 win over the San Francisco Giants. Gary Carter runs up, and Greg Jeffrey says, "Boy, do I miss that guy." That was a good strike. I mean, Carter didn't even play hardly in 1989.
Yeah.
You know, had the knee problems. But Carter, Hernandez, people like that, intense, know the game, can be there for the rookies. This is what a guy like Mookie Wilson can do for you.
Or Carlton Fisk for the
Exactly.
White Sox. So it's like having an extra coach, only in many respects it's better because players have a tendency to listen to guys like that more than they do the coaches. Mookie fouling off the curveball, and it's still 2-2. Mookie continually bothered throughout his career by sore feet. And of course, playing on the artificial turf a lot, they can get even sore. So they fitted Mookie's shoes with some new insoles in an effort to help.
He's got the bad dogs.
Bad dogs. And Mookie walks quite often as if he has bad dogs. But when he runs, it looks like his feet don't even touch the ground. It wouldn't even be a factor. Love to watch him go from first to third. Still 2-2.
I don't know if you've noticed at home, but Mookie doesn't like to walk. Mookie.
No.
What was he up? 688 times with the Mets. He walked 18 times.
Yeah, and a couple of those I think were intentional.
Right. Mookie would like to swing the bat. He is a switch hitter.
Just outside. 3-2. Now there's a pitch Mookie would ordinarily not take. Grounded back to Perez. And 2 away. A couple of long at bats. Let's get another update from the studio and John Saunders.
Red Sox battling back against Swan. Wade Boggs at the plate, pulls this one through the hole. Reed comes in. Quintana scores from second. He had doubled, and the game is tied at 3 in the third. Back to Steve and Jim.
Oh, those Red Sox, they're always doing whatever it takes, it seems like, to win a ball game. Now they've tied it up.
Well, people said they didn't have enough pitching. They didn't hit enough home runs. Well, they don't steal bases. They just keep purring along.
Tony Fernandez takes a strike. Tony also grounded to first, his first at bat. Batting here with 2 out and nobody on in the third inning. No score. 1-1.
If you want to take a look at a guy that's relaxed at home plate, check his hands out. You just see a lot like Rod Carew. Very relaxed manner, not reducing the bat handle to sawdust.
The strike at the belt. 1-2.
Just about 3 years ago, people thinking, there it is, look how relaxed. He's working from this side this year. There's the forkball, the split finger fastball.
And he has not had command of that pitch tonight.
Well, he hasn't been in a
Every time he's tried to
position
throw.
where he could throw it. You know, there 1-2, 1 ball, 2 strikes, he can do it because it's a pitch that you'd like to throw a strike with, but you'd also, if you have 2 strikes on the hitter, like to throw it just below the strike zone. Talking to Roger Craig, you know, you can not split your fingers quite as wide and maybe throw a 2-0 and 3-1 just as a changeup.
Curveball hit to left field. Ivan Calderon with an easy play and an easy inning for Perez, even though he threw quite a few pitches. He retires Toronto in order. We've played 3 here in Toronto, and there's still no score. Welcome back to Toronto, where we have been joined in the booth as the first hitter of the top of the 4th inning. Wouldn't you know it? Robin Ventura hits the first pitch to Wilson for the first out. 1 away, no score. And Leslie Nielsen is with us in the booth. One of the, I guess, maybe the only person who has ever umpired and sung the national anthem at a baseball game.
And I loved it.
Enrico Palazzo.
Enrico Palazzo.
Oh, the movie Naked Gun. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it.
Is this going to be a sequel? I mean, you're doing another one like
what?
Naked Gun, Naked the Gun the Second, or what is going on?
We're going to be doing another Naked Gun in November, but you were in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah. I had one of the main
Absolutely.
parts.
We had a wonderful time. I have seminars that I'll be doing now on singing and also on umpiring, so anyone who wishes to apply.
That's your new career now, huh?
I hope so.
Now, did you really do the Michael Jackson moonwalk? Was that somebody else? I mean, is that a double?
I'm afraid that had to be somebody else. Yeah, I
That was-
talked with David Zucker, and I said, you better get somebody down here to teach me. And he says, Leslie, you're wearing a whole umpiring outfit. We can put somebody in there, they won't know the difference. And I said, well, that's very good.
Did you take any umpiring tips from anybody, or did you do it your own unique way?
We had some official umpires there, and they gave me all the tips in the world. They really were. What a
Like look
places.
professional? Or what?
Pardon me?
I mean, what were some of those tips?
The tips? Open your eyes was one. Or pretend to open your eyes.
Make believe, right?
And don't ever admit you were wrong if you were. Is that what?
That's it.
Ivan Calderon with a fly ball into short. Right center. Mookie Wilson takes charge. 2 away.
Can't believe how spectacular this place is.
Isn't this something?
First time you've been here?
Well, I was here 2 days before it opened, but to see it now, totally completed. What a wonderful addition to the city. And then with that edifice, that's the tallest structure in the world over there too, where you see it with the dome open.
What brings you to Canada?
I came up to do some stuff for the Special Olympics, which is close to my heart. And
What does one do when he's not doing movies? Plays in golf tournaments? I saw you at the Crosby.
I told you I have no ambition, no goals. I just want to keep on working in my profession enough so they'll keep inviting me to golf tournaments, and that's the name of it for me.
It's working.
And helping out, whichever way. Yeah, you bet.
Dan Pasqua, the hitter, with 2 out, nobody on. And he strokes one into left center field. Here comes Rob Ducey, and he gets there.
Like that.
Second good play by Ducey in the ball game. Both of them against Pasqua, and the White Sox go in order.
Expos in the Pirates with a 3.5 game lead in the National League East. Oil Can Boyd in the 3rd to Andy Van Slyke. Wally Bachman is coming hard. Walker with the throw, not in time. 1-0, the Pirates on top. Let's get back to Steve and Jim and Leslie Nielsen. Surely the game's not going to stay tied.
Agreed. I mean, what, the Blue Jays are up, what, 5 games now?
Thank you, John. Here we are with Leslie Nielsen and SkyDome. No score as we go to the bottom half of the 4th inning, and it seems like every time I see you, Leslie, you're at a ballpark or on a golf course. But
well, that's good.
You must enjoy baseball.
I love baseball.
Do you have a favorite team?
Pardon me?
Do you have a
Of course,
favorite?
what'd you say?
He's putting this on all during the break. Oh, what did you
I have a favorite team.
Well, can
Well,
you share
what
it with
else?
us?
The
Will
Dodgers.
you share it with us? The Dodgers?
Dodgers,
Have you ever been in Tommy Lasorda's office?
Well, what do you call his office?
Well, where Sinatra's picture is.
It's that museum. It's a museum.
Where they deliver the pasta after the game.
That's
you know.
the one, yeah.
I think your picture's in there.
Might be. I love pasta.
If your picture's not in there, your pasta's in there. Kelly Gruber leading off the 4th.
Rob Ducey, the left fielder's made a couple of fine running catches. Gotta really be proud of him up here in Toronto.
Well, it's always great when you have a guy who's from the city make the ball club.
You know.
Gruber fly deep to right his first at bat. And a breaking ball fouled off. It's 1-2. Melito Perez against Todd Stottlemyre.
We'll see the tumbling action on that split finger. Leslie, any sports you play when you were a youngster?
Well, I played,
other
of
than
course, in the beginning up here. I played hockey.
in the beginning?
Time I was 5. Well,
in the
yes,
beginning.
my beginning. You know, there's no kid in Canada who doesn't start out playing hockey. And then everything else. Basketball ended up being a thing. Baseball. We played mainly softball when I was a kid. We never got to what we call hardball. Why can't I hear him? Can you hear him?
Oh yeah. I only hear Mr. Zabriskie when I want to, and when he wants
That's right.
me to hear.
But there are a lot of people who hear me when they don't want to.
Uh-oh.
Way inside. And I guess no, Gruber didn't get hit. He acted as if he might have. But it's 2-2. Gruber, McGriff, and Olerud here in the 4th for Toronto. And there's a good shot of how far inside it was. Just outside, 3-2.
Not a lot of high strikes tonight, Steve. You already talked about John Hirschbeck, the umpire. When he gets down on that knee, anything above his eyesight, in other words, with him looking straight ahead as a ball, anything down, you're going to, of course, you know all about this, Leslie. After doing Naked Gun,
What?
you're going to get some of the knee-high strikes.
Down the right field line, slicing and out of play, just into the first row. Still a full count.
It's really nice of you to give me a fellow who's hard of hearing, to give me the earphones that don't work. I appreciate it.
Let me turn these up for you.
Well, you can't have everything. You know, you had the best lines.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Now
it came
Can
through.
you hear?
Now I can hear.
Oh, great. Well, I'll tell you what, you wear these headsets long enough, you become hard of hearing.
I understand.
Part of the problem.
This is different. Now I can hear.
Well, that's good. And another slicing foul down the right field line. Again, Sosa over, but again, it's back in the seat. Still 3-2. What did you enjoy most, Leslie, singing the national anthem or umpiring the game?
Well, I love doing the umpiring bit, but my 2 favorite sequences make it kind of the aquarium sequence where the fish bites my nose and singing the national anthem. And that is...
well, it's almost like The Naked Gun became a cult film because people, they don't just see it once.
But that's true.
Yeah.
But the nature of the humor is that they don't try to tell you what's funny, so you got to go back and catch it for yourself.
And when you do go back, you then, no matter how many times you've seen the movie, you pick up something else that you may have missed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost machine gun humor at times.
Well, the interesting thing about it, I went to see The Naked Gun for the first time in Baltimore, and people in line recognize me as Jim Palmer, the baseball player. They don't know that I'm in the movie along with Tim McCarver and Kurt Gowdy and Mel Allen, Dick Enberg, Dr. Joyce Brothers, Dick Vitale. On the way out, they're going, I loved your movie. My movie. Your movie. Like, I mean, I was in there 6 minutes just kind of sitting around.
Hey! Finally hits one in fair territory, and Ozzie Guillen with the play to get him at first. Let's go back to the studio and John Saunders for a Baseball Tonight update.
A's and the Yankees, 5th inning. Mark McGwire hits a towering home run off Andy Hawkins, although he only hits towering home runs. Give it a look, but it is way back into the seats and ties the game 1-1. That's where they stand in the 5th. Get it back to you.
Thank you, John. Here we're still looking for our first crooked number up there. We got nothing but zeros with 1 out in the bottom of the 4th, and Fred McGriff, the hitter, he popped out to Ventura, the 3rd baseman, in the 2nd inning.
Yeah, speaking of home runs, this guy led the American League the last 2 years. He's going to have to really hurry to catch Cecil Fielder.
Boy.
McGwire, that was his 35th. Canseco also with 35.
Cecil's been on another planet this year, but Fred McGriff has had a heck of a year. Look at his career slugging percentage among active players. And he's number 3 in the league right now this year as slugging percentage leader. In fact, McGriff is in the top 10 in 8 different offensive categories.
The impressive thing is that batting average, 312. He last year walked 119 times. I don't know if he'll get that many walks, but he'll walk over 100 times.
Fastball grounded to first. Frank Thomas with the play. 2 away, and again we go back to the studio and get another update from John.
Well, the Mets with 1 run in the game may not be enough. Obviously won't be at this point. Dale Murphy here with his 2nd run batted in of the game. Lenny Dykstra comes in to score again, much the same way. The Mets are down 2-1 with the way they score runs. It could be trouble. Back to Steve and Jim.
Murphy and Dykstra doing the damage on both those runs. Here, 2 out and nobody on for John Olerud, who walked in the 2nd. Outside. Leslie, you are from Canada.
Yeah, initially, yeah, very much so.
Where exactly?
We, Regina, and then when I was a baby, we went up to Fort Norman in the Northwest Territory.
Oh, pioneer
to the Arctic Circle, you know it.
Man.
That I was, from the north.
Do you follow Toronto and Montreal and those teams?
Can't help it.
You still feel that?
You always keep track.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'm a fan of the Dodgers, but I'm a fan of the Blue Jays.
Well, they're in different leagues. You can do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right.
And how long are you here in Toronto?
Have to leaving, going back tomorrow. Going back to L.A. And we taking off on an golfing expedition somewhere.
And throw in a movie once a year or so.
That's it.
Do you have your own golf tournament? I mean, it's said in Los
don't.
Angeles that you don't have one, you're nobody. Now, I don't want you to get offended by that.
I don't. No, there's no way to offend me.
Couple a week out there. I mean,
Jim, I'm insensitive. You can't hurt my feelings.
I've heard that said about you.
But I was the chairman of this tournament here for the Special Olympics, and that's about the closest I've had sort of chances. But it's a tremendous undertaking, I think, and responsibility. And there you got him. Oh no, he's walking.
John
Second time, yeah.
Yes, right.
Walks again.
1 of 3.
So 2 out with Olerud at first, and the hitter will be Greg Myers.
Do you know, when you see how beautiful this is here, do you think that the ball players have to wash their hands before they come out to play? I mean, it looks so.
Yeah, I think
clean their
the Blue
shoes
Jays.
off.
Yeah, the Blue Jays take a very antiseptic.
Clean your shoes. Okay, wipe your shoes before you go on the field.
That's right. I don't want you getting our dirt dirty.
You're right.
We have clean dirt here in Toronto. We don't want it dirty. I think they were afraid to open the roof, you know, right? Let some dust in or something. Did you see the other night when they had all the bugs here? They had a tremendous insect attack.
The attack, right.
They had to stop the game and close the roof.
But then what are they? Well, what does that solve? No more bugs come in, but what do you do with the bugs that are already here?
They're known as black flies.
That's right.
Seriously?
Yeah, black flies, I'm sure.
Now, you know, I've worked with Cosell, and, you know, he used to say things like he knew that they made sense and that they were for real, but how do we know whether they were black flies or white flies? Or
He's found me out already.
That sounded good to me, Leslie. That's all I know. Myers takes a strike, 1 and 2. We had a couple of black flies land on this counter tonight, so I would believe you. They look like black
players
flies
out there
to me.
can catch them too.
That's right.
That's right.
They're hard to catch.
Yes, they are.
1 and 2 to Myers with Olerud at first and 2 out. Fouled off. And when Leslie leaves us here in the booth, he will be going down and taking John Hirschbeck's place as the home plate umpire.
It's true. With the mask on, you won't know the difference.
now, have you run into any umpires? I mean, umpires have a lot of. Earl Weaver would never say they have good senses of humor, but they do. I mean, they have like to have a good time.
Fantastic. I get a chance to go to Wade Boggs tournament in Florida.
Another golf tournament.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And the number of umpires attend that. We have a great time.
Strike 3. Our thanks to Leslie Nielsen for being with us.
Thank you for putting up with me.
Hey, well, good luck.
Nice to see you again, Jim.
Shoot a couple of birdies.
I will.
Back in Toronto for the top of the 5th inning. No score. Nothing but zeros on either side of the ledger. And a reminder that Sunday night baseball will come your way at 8 o'clock Eastern time on, guess what, Sunday night. St. Louis Cardinals and Chicago Cubs will be going at it. John Miller and Joe Morgan will be there to bring you all the action on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, 8 o'clock Eastern time from Wrigley Field. Wrigley Field is nice, but it doesn't have hotel rooms where you can feed your baby and watch the game at the same time. I hope he's not feeding that baby what he has in his hand there.
I want to know where the guy with the hot tub is. Remember we were here in April? Hot tub down, I think, the left field line.
The guy had it all in his room, didn't he?
Well, almost.
Well, from what we could tell, couldn't see everything. Carlton Fisk walked his first time up. Strike one.
See, when you see swings that poor on the first pitch on a slider, that tells me that he's got a real good one. A slider that supposedly looks like a fastball to the last second. Hitter gets out there thinking that the ball is going to be coming up there a little bit quicker, and then it just slides away.
Fisk with a base hit to center field. May have broken his bat, but that is the first hit of the game for either team.
We talked about rookie mistakes, inexperience, back-to-back sliders. Carlton, as you said, did not hit it well, but he made the adjustment. Must have picked up the spin on that slider and just pinged it into center field.
Well, a veteran hitter's going to say, "Well, he just made me look bad on that pitch. I may look for that again." And sure enough, there it was. Frank Thomas, the hitter, he struck out swinging in the second. Bounced up there, but blocked by Myers.
That's an interesting point, because when you're that far out in front as a hitter, as Fisk was, you're saying to yourself, I got to wait a little bit more. So you're probably more susceptible to the fastball. You're going to wait on it, the fastball will be by you.
Right.
But Todd Stottlemyre, just, again, only 25, only his second year.
Plus he has a rookie catcher in Greg Myers.
Well, and also Pat Borders, the other catcher.
Outside, 2 balls and no strikes. With Frank Thomas hitting, you would not expect any type of a play to be on the part of the White Sox. But keep in mind that Carlton Fisk has stolen 7 bases this year in 9 attempts. The slider missed by Thomas, 2-1.
Yeah, a lot better percentage than he has than a lot of the other players. Yeah.
Todd was only 6 when Carlton had his first base hit.
Well, you made a real good point about having a guy like Fisk on the ball club. Talking about work ethics, talking about, of course, he's talked about why there aren't good catchers. He said nobody wants to pay the price. Not to mention if you catch till you're 42. Can you imagine all the times he's got up and down, he's warmed up pitchers, played in games, the intense concentration you have to have, not only to worry about yourself as a hitter, but also the guy you're trying to get through 8 or 9 innings on the mound.
Well, I talked to Pudge before the game about his ability to play not only so long, but to catch and play so well for so long. And he said there's really only one reason, and that is because I have dedicated myself to making myself physically able and ready to play. And then what an example that is to other guys on the team.
If somebody said you really look thin, he said 220. I mean, he's a big man.
He is. He's 6'3".
But he doesn't look it. I mean, he's in good shape, very little body fat. And then probably, he'll tell you right now, better shape than he was 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah, and he has an unbelievable regimen. There he's running. The pitch is high, and it's ball 4. So Fisk is at second. Thomas walks as he's at first with nobody out. Carlton with 7 stolen bases at the age of 42. The record is 11. Rogers Hornsby in 1916, when he was 42, stole 11 bases. Carlton could set the record.
You see, Carlton, a good enough base runner, right there on the base on balls. He knows only 1 base at a time, especially at 42. But he had such a good jump, he might have stolen that base even if he did not have the ensuing walk.
So that'll bring up Sammy Sosa. Sosa hitting only .235, struck out his first at bat. But against Toronto, he is a career .350 hitter. And he's bunting, but taking for a strike.
Well, at least squaring around a bunt. Interesting to see. There's so many guys in the major leagues that don't really know how to bunt properly, don't get the bat out in front of home plate. There's Terry Bevington down at third base. Scott Fletcher on deck. He struck out his last time up. It'll be interesting to see whether Torborg thinks that Melito Perez has the kind of stuff to maybe play for one run here in the 5th. And that is a decision you have to make as a manager.
Well, he is bunting. And almost thrown away, but they get Fisk at third. Good play by Tony Fernandez to catch the ball and keep his foot on the bag as Myers made a wide throw, but they did get the lead runner.
Not a good bunt right in front of home plate. Greg Myers pounces on it. Doesn't make a good throw. But again, if you're a shortstop and if you're a good one, you're going to have good balance, fast feet. So this is what Fernandez has to use here as he just snares it as is about to go into left field. Getting there early helps too.
Yep.
You know, when you have good speed, and especially if you're a glider like Tony. Tony never looks like he really makes an effort to do anything, whether it's hitting or fielding.
But he can do it. And a good play now has runners at first and second with one out for Scott Fletcher. Grounded foul. Tony Fernandez moving up on some of the greats of all time, and of course nobody knows the value of Mark Belanger any better than you.
Well, also Aparicio, he was my first shortstop when I came with the Orioles. It'll be interesting when Cal Ripken set the record for 95 consecutive errorless games, only made 3 errors. Tony has 11. If he'll win the Gold Glove this year. Last year he made 2 less errors than Cal Ripken, I think 6 to 8.
Fletcher pops it up in foul territory. It's playable for Myers. McGriff also there, and McGriff runs him off and makes the play for out number 2. And we go back to the studio for another update from John Saunders.
Well, you just had the great save by Tony Fernandez. The Pirates could have used it here. The can with the bunt, Bream down to third, but this one does get away. Noboa comes in to score. Fitzgerald follows him, and Montreal takes a 2-1 lead over the Pirates in the 5th. Back to Steve and Jim.
Thank you, John. And right here we'll take a look at the play by Fred McGriff as you see Greg Myers calling for it.
Oh, he is, but again, you know, 49,000, noisy, better angle. Crime Dog with a grab. Just a much easier play. You know, as a catcher, the ball has that backspin, but better angle, and let the sure guy have it.
And he made the play. So Ozzie Guillen, the hitter, with 2 out and runners at first and second, and a breaking ball high for ball 1. Guillen grounded to third, his first at bat in the 3rd inning. The White Sox had runners at first and second with nobody out. Sammy Sosa bunted into a fielder's choice, and Scott Fletcher popped out. And a high pitch fouled off. 1-1.
You know, when we talked about fundamentals, talked about performing key plays, and this certainly will go down for the White Sox as a situation where they could not perform the basic fundamentals. But you look at Sosa, only 2 sacrifices all year long. So if you're Jeff Torborg, maybe, and that's 451 at bat, 451 times at bat. Did you make the right deal? I mean, did you make the right decision from a standpoint as manager? Did you ask a guy that maybe can't bunt to bunt?
Yeah, that's the problem. The situation and the book says you need to bunt here. But if you've got a guy that can't do the job.
Then sometimes maybe to start the runners, you try to do something else.
Ozzie with a new piece of wood loops the base hit into right center field. Frank Thomas will score. And on the play, Sosa goes to third. It's 1-0 Chicago. A big 2-out base hit by Ozzie Guillen for his 50th RBI of the year.
A great year by Ozzie, and again, if you work for Walt Reniak, the hitting instructor, it's contact. Guillen never has ever been much of a guy to walk. He just doesn't hit it very hard. Big ballpark. Outfielders play deep even with Guillen because of his extra base speed. I think he really doesn't know where to throw it, and finally says, I'll just throw it in toward the infield.
And under the circumstances, that would be the appropriate play. Lance Johnson takes a big curveball for a strike. Johnson's 0 for 2. He's grounded to first and flied out to short right field. Runners at first and third with 2 out.
So many facets of the game. I was watching McEnroe play the other night. Oh, he's cruising along, and you figure, well, everything's going to his right. He gets a bad line call. Wonder how is he going to play when he gets behind? Well, he showed everybody when he was down 1-4 in the third set. Same thing with the pitcher.
Slapped on the ground to second. Manny Lee with a good play, and the inning is over. But a run on 2 hits for Chicago in the 5th, and they take a 1-0 lead. Some of the fans up here on the club level enjoying the evening. That's another nice thing about the SkyDome. Restaurants abound. Service is everywhere. And the environment is always nice, because if it's inclement weather, they just slam the door on this big puppy, which takes about 20 minutes. Well, this is quite an edifice. Chicago with a 1-0 lead as we go to the bottom of the 5th inning, bottom of the order, and Rob Ducey leads it off. It'll be Ducey, Manny Lee, and Junior Felix. The bottom third of the order against Melito Perez. Ducey reached on a fielder's choice in the 2nd. A breaking ball for a strike, 1-1. And a fastball at the knees for strike 2, 1-2. Blue Jays are not a good come from behind ball club.
Yeah, if you're the Blue Jays, you got to be a little concerned about Bobby Thigpen out there in the bullpen. I mean, that's the storyline here. Somehow you better get it all done before you get to him. He's already got 48 saves.
Ducey chased one, and Fisk caught it, even though Ducey thought he might not have, and properly ran the play out. And it's a strikeout. Carlton, and we talked earlier about the success Chicago has had due mainly to their young pitching staff. Before the game, I asked Carlton what it was he felt he brought to the success of his young pitching staff.
What I bring to them, I think, more than anything, is 19 years worth of calling pitches. I've called pitches for a lot of pitchers, a lot of different kinds of pitchers. I've called them against all kinds of hitters, and they seem to rely on that as we go through the game and as we go through the season.
Be foolish not to rely on that as Manny Lee flies out to Ivan Calderon.
Yeah, when he broke his wrist last year, and they didn't have as good a staff, ERA went down about a run a game once he came back. This year, not only does he bring that, he brings intensity. He brings a great ability to frame the pitch, move in and out. He gives you a great target if you're a pitcher. Early in the year, he went out and screamed at a lot of his pitchers because he said, you guys don't want to get any better. Why don't you listen to me? I mean, that's what I'm there for. So where maybe Toronto does not have this dominant kind of personality on their ball club, the White Sox do. Maybe that's why they're playing better than anybody ever expected.
You see the extra flap on Carlton's catcher's mitt. That's to protect that wrist. It comes down below the palm of his hand. Junior Felix, the hitter, with 2 out, nobody on. I would liken that, Carlton's role, and any catcher like that, to an NFL quarterback. I mean, a guy who really players can rally behind, a guy who will take charge on the field, and a guy that the team looks to fill that leadership
like a
role.
Billy Kilmer.
Yeah. Or, you know, I mean, any really strong quarterback that takes charge and gets the job done. Not all catchers are like that. Not all quarterbacks are like that.
Well, when he had that run-in with Deion Sanders, it wasn't anything about personalities. It was, hey, listen, you know, you run out pop flies. That's the way the game is played, according to me. And, you know, a lot of guys won't take that stance. But he has straightened out Melito Perez tonight. He has got him throwing strikes and more around the strike zone than he was early on. He's pitching a great game.
Foul tip. Felix runs to first, but Carlton throws him out, and the inning is over as Toronto goes in order. Chicago leads by 1. Robin Ventura leads it off for the White Sox in the top of the 6th inning. Chicago with a 1-0 lead over Toronto. Ventura 0 for 2. He's grounded to short and flied to center.
Yeah, his numbers got a lot better when Jeff Torborg moved him into the second spot. Maybe a few more fastballs, especially if Lance Johnson, the leadoff batter, gets on.
Swing and a miss, 0-2. Ventura is hitting .235, but just to illustrate your point, James, since he has been moved to the number 2 spot, he's hit .274, significantly better than his season average. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
No, 58 game hitting streak at Oklahoma State. Of course, that's with an aluminum bat. Tells you something about it. Obviously, he can make contact.
Yep. And he does, by and large, make contact. You know, the White Sox really feel good about him. Even though he's made the 23 errors, even though he's hitting .235, they really feel like what he has demonstrated, both offensively and defensively, has shown them that he can play in the big leagues. And they're certainly going to give him every opportunity. 2-2. Ventura, Calderon, and Pasqua here in the 6th inning against Todd Stottlemyre, who finds himself down 1-0. Driven to left field. Rob Ducey on the run. He won't get to this one. Big turn by Ventura, but he will hold with a single.
Boy, what a throw. Also tells you that Ventura doesn't have good speed. That's a double all the way. Even though, in spite of the good throw, I think if you're anticipated, I think he's probably saying to himself right now, I should be at second base. With a 1-0 lead. I mean, it took him a long time to get to this ball, but look at this throw. Would have made it close. But you got to be thinking double on, especially on the turf.
Especially leading off the inning. Calderon to bunt, misses it for strike 1. Well, maybe Ventura didn't get out of the box well. I didn't notice that, but I think I'd have tried to go to second base
from here.
Yeah. Calderon is struck out and flied to short center field. Ventura at first, nobody out. Slapped on the ground to second. It could be 2. Lee to Fernandez to McGriff. And takes care of the leadoff base hit. And next Wednesday, we'll take care of a little National League baseball action for you on ESPN's Baseball Tonight. The St. Louis Cardinals will be in Shea Stadium in New York to take on the Mets. Always a great rivalry. Some of you will see Houston at Cincinnati in the National League West, and it gets underway at 7:30 Eastern Time next Wednesday here on ESPN. 2 out, nobody on for Dan Pasqua, who has been retired twice by Rob Ducey in left field. Both fine plays. Too tight. 1-1.
It's interesting when you look at the Oakland A's. They get Harold Baines. They get Willie McGee. The White Sox get Matt Stark.
Nothing against Matt Stark, but
former Blue Jay, as a matter of fact. But it's just I guess they don't feel that they're going to mortgage their future to try to make a run for it this year. But I'll tell you what, you got to give them a lot of really stars for their tenacity. They've hung in there all year long.
And they have, as you pointed out in the opening of the telecast, as you see two young men with A's hats on. Chicago has won 6 of the 10 games between them. They have 3 games left with Oakland. So hope is not totally faded.
Well, they swept a series in Oakland.
Yep.
Now we know what happened when Oakland went to Boston last week. Possibly a look at the playoffs this year in the American League. Wasn't even close.
No.
Dave Stewart said maybe a little message.
Pasqua down on strikes. So the double play helps out in the inning. A hit, but nobody left. Middle of the sixth, still a 1-0 Chicago lead.
The Expos 9.5 games back, but apparently they don't believe they're out of it against the Pirates. Junior Noboa down the left field line. Bonds chases it down as Wallach comes in to score. Gets it into Jay Bell. He sends it into LaValliere, and Larry Walker is dead at the plate. But the Expos have a 3-1 lead in the sixth. Let's get it back to Steve and Jim.
Thank you, John. Well, those Expos may be thinking that this is their final shot, really, to make enough inroads in this series to get back in the race. Willie Blair starts throwing in the Toronto bullpen as we go to the bottom half of inning number 6. And it's the top half of the order, top third of the order for Toronto, as Mookie Wilson 0 for 2 with a couple of ground outs leads it off. And a fastball for strike one. Wilson, Fernandez, and Gruber here in the 6th inning. One and one. Mookie, who has become known as Mr. August because he has great months of August almost every year, is not having a bad September so far. He's hit .324 over his last 19 games. 2-1.
He's been all over the lineup. Tried to lead him off, didn't do that well. Moved in the 9th. Back at leadoff.
Did Mookie hold up? Yes, he did. 3-1.
Well, he swung at ball 4 the last time and grounded back to Perez. See what he does this time. Again, good hitting situation. The reason he's not a good leadoff hitter is the obvious. The only time he's going to get on usually is when he gets on by a base hit.
Fouled off.
You know, while so many good leadoff guys will work the pitcher to try to get on, I mean, Mookie just doesn't come from that hitting philosophy.
No, he comes from the hit it, swing hard in case you hit it school. Carlton Fisk did a shot very near the throat area. And that may be what the delay is, as John Hirschbeck's cleaning the plate off. And I think he may be giving Pudge a little extra time here.
Well, that makes that 330 home runs as a catcher even more monumental. Take the abuse, not only the knees, but also the foul tips.
Fastball fouled back. And your hands get so sore and beat up. That's why it's hard to hit. As I was saying, your hands get sore.
Well, that's a good point, because even the hand, even if you wear a sponge, the ball moves so much. You get some pitchers that have such live arms, you don't catch the ball cleanly.
Wilson down on strikes. Melito Perez with his 5th strikeout, and we'll get an update from the studio and John Saunders.
The Yankees self-destruct in the 6th inning against the A's. Carney knocks it down to Steve Balboni. He's coming home, throws it away. Canseco takes a taxi cab home, if you will. 4 runs in the 6th inning, 5-1 now. Let's get back to Steve and Jim.
Oakland just keeps on keeping on, and you can bet that Chicago is aware of that as they watch the scoreboard here in the SkyDome. Tony Fernandez 0 for 2. Looks at a fastball high for ball 1. Fernandez is grounded to first and flied to left. Ball 2. Toronto has managed only 4 base runners total in the game. 3 walks and a fielder's choice. Ball 3. Three and 1 on a pitch that at the best was borderline.
Well, it was the same pitch as the first pitch, and that was called a ball, but 3-0. Sometimes pitches looked a little bit differently by umpires.
Fly ball, left center field. Lance Johnson was shaded over in that direction anyway, and it's an easy play for out number 2. And a reminder that Sunday is not only Sunday Night Baseball here on ESPN, it's also NFL Game Day, the season premiere this Sunday at noon Eastern Time, and that's a new time to join Chris Berman and Tom Jackson and Pete Axtell and all those guys. Noon Eastern Time, and then NFL Prime Time will be along after most of the games are over at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. This Sunday, season premiere on ESPN. Here's Kelly Gruber with 2 out and nobody on. He flied to deep right field and grounded to short. And he hits it a ton to left field. Off the wall. Gruber has a double. The first hit for the Toronto Blue Jays against Melito Perez. A 2-out double by Kelly Gruber to left center.
29th on the year for Kelly. You get an idea of what kind of power he has. 24 home runs. This ball just misses by about 3 feet from being number 25.
He is the tying run with 2 out here in the 6th inning, and Chicago leads it 1-0.
It'll be interesting to see how Perez views the dilemma. Does he go after McGriff, who's walked over 90 times, or does he, or 82 times, or does he, really pitch him carefully and then have Olerud, who's already walked twice, on deck? That's where you get into big innings.
That 3rd out is often very elusive. McGriff 0 for 2 has popped out and grounded out. Last year, Fred only had 1 home run in the entire month of September. This year, he's already hit 4 home runs in just the last 5 games. Base hit center field. Here comes Gruber, and he will score to tie the game.
Well, what they did last September is stop throwing him strikes. Walked 119 times in 1989, but didn't walk as much in September as the other months. This time he gets a strike and ties it up 1 apiece. Again, 1-0, you're behind. That looks like a split finger fastball. McGriff knows it's into center field, and with Gruber's speed, Lance Johnson says, let's just worry about the go-ahead run.
And that is Fred McGriff, who's now at first base with 2 outs for John Olerud. Olerud has walked twice. A breaking ball for a strike. McGriff extends his hitting streak to 9 straight games, over which he's hit over 500 with that RBI single. Down the left field line, slicing foul and going off the first row for strike 2. And activity begins in the Chicago bullpen. Here in the SkyDome, they have monitors in the dugouts because you cannot see the bullpen from just about anywhere in this ballpark. Oh and 2. 1-2.
Another reason Olerud's such a good hitter, he uses all fields. If you're going to take the approach that he takes, which is to be very patient, you got to worry, if you're a pitcher, about the fact that he will just take that ball away, and he's not trying to pull it. He won't get a lot of ground balls to second.
2-2.
I mean, that ball is maybe 1.5 inches off the corner.
Yeah, there are a lot of very experienced players who wouldn't take that pitch, and here's Olerud, a rookie.
Of course, the longer you wait, the longer you could wait to see whether the ball is going to be a ball or a strike. If you're trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, you have to open up. You got to move forward. And he gets him with an inside fastball.
1 run on 2 hits here in the 6th inning for Toronto as they tie the score at 1 after 6.
If I told you Ken Griffey was having a great game in Boston for the Mariners, you'd think junior, right? No. Senior beating out an infield hit as Reed can't get him here. 40 years old, and he's in there, scores Valley. He's 3 for 4 with 2 runs batted in, and he chased Mike Boddicker from the game. Seattle's up 4-3 in the 6th. Back to Steve and Jim.
Thanks for stopping by.
The beautiful city of Toronto on a beautiful night and a good ball game, a 1-1 tie. Melito Perez no hitting the Blue Jays through 5 innings, and the Blue Jays tying the game in the 6th with a run on 2 hits. Chicago got their run in the 5th with a couple of hits and a walk, and we go to the 7th inning, and Carlton Fisk leads it off for the White Sox. He has walked and singled to center. Since Fisk turned 40, he has hit 47 home runs. And he's playing every bit as well now as he did certainly 5 years ago, maybe even longer, Jim.
The one thing I remember the 1975 home run that we talked about earlier, but I remember when Kenny Harrelson came over as GM and was going to make him into a left fielder.
That didn't last very long.
No, it didn't. I mean, the premise behind it was an interesting one.
This is what you need when you're almost 43. Another foul ball. It's not enough that you get them when you're catching. Now
Right.
you have to hit yourself. And Pudge is going to take some time.
Boy, does that hurt.
Oh.
I never was hit by a pitch, but I did this off Dean Chance once, right off the top of the instep.
The thing about it is,
It gets worse.
It's rarely a serious injury, but it plagues you for days.
Well, the next day, I thought my foot was broken.
Oh, man.
I thought about going to the hospital, but there was no way that I could walk to get there.
Oh, I mean, we're not laughing that Carlton hurt his foot, but if you haven't done it, you don't understand. I mean, you got to laugh to keep from crying. 'Cause, I mean, it is so painful.
But going back to what Ken Harrelson wanted to do with Fisk, he felt he could use him offensively more as a left fielder than they could as a catcher. They had Ron Karkovice, who is still in the ball club and is coming along as a catcher, incredible throwing arm. But they figure if you put Fisk in left field, of course, this was right after he hit 37 home runs, I believe. I mean, Carlton didn't want to do this.
No, and the premise behind it also in extending his career and all that is good, but has proven to be unnecessary. Junior Felix comes in, and Fisk is retired for the first out of the 7th inning. Tuesday night, another doubleheader for you here on ESPN. Game 1 on Tuesday will find the Cardinals at the Mets, or some of you will see Detroit at Baltimore. That'll begin at 7:30 Eastern time as usual. And then game 2 of our Tuesday night doubleheader, Minnesota at California to take on the Angels. And some of you then will see Oakland in Seattle. First pitch to Frank Thomas, ripped into left field for a base hit. Thomas, who had struck out and walked and scored the White Sox run at first base with 1 out. That is only the 4th hit for Chicago against Todd Stottlemyre. And it brings up Sammy Sosa. Sosa has struck out and unsuccessfully trying to sacrifice, bunted into a fielder's choice.
We talked earlier about Walt Reniak, work ethics making you go out there. But the thing that I see nowadays, almost every batting instructor is there to make sure you don't practice bad habits during batting practice. So many guys years ago would just get out there, see how many balls they could hit in the seats. You do that now, Walt, hey, says get out of the cage. You're going to waste my time. I'm not allowing you to waste yours. Get out of here. Go take some ground balls. Well, when you have a guy that stays on you like that, sooner or later it's going to pay off.
Well, he doesn't do anything if he doesn't take his job seriously. He takes it very seriously. 1-1.
I was telling about Roger Clemens. There was going to be a press conference in which Clemens said that he's going to back off and maybe not pitch for a while. We didn't know about, of course, what the contents of that press conference was. He said, there's a special person. There's a guy, what the game's all about. There's a guy that works at his craft. Well, that's what Reniak and Walter expects you to do if you're a hitter for him.
Slider as he dropped down again with the Laredo delivery and gets Sammy Sosa for out number 2 and strikeout number 5.
Now look at the angle. A little deceptive. Again, the breaking ball. The hitter, Sammy Sosa, way out on his front foot. So you got deception. You have the actual curvature of the ball, and then you have the location on the plate. A lot of pitching coaches don't like that, though, because it changes the angle, and sometimes it allows you to get wild with your fastball. Certainly has not affected Todd Stottlemyre tonight.
So here's Scott Fletcher, and he slaps the first pitch foul out of play for strike 1. Fletcher has struck out and popped out in foul territory to the first baseman McGriff.
I mean, you watch Todd Stottlemyre tonight pitch, you wonder how he ever lost 14 games. In spite of Toronto not playing up to their capabilities. 28 starts. This is his 29th. He's got 26 decisions.
He did not give up a hit tonight until the 5th inning when the White Sox scored their only run. Just missing at the knees, and it's 2-1 or 1-1. And there's Cito Gaston and the pitching coach Galen Cisco.
Last year's pitching coach for a long time up here, Al Widmar, out on the bench. Works with some of the instructional league teams. He's going to have already had his back operated on, going to have his knee reconstructed, but after he works with some of the youngsters down in the instructional league for Toronto. Did a great job with the pitching staff up here.
I saw Al tonight, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Two and one with 2 out, and Frank Thomas at first base. Outside, 3-1.
Toronto's outfield moving back with 2 outs. Go ahead run at first, even with a guy like Scott Fletcher who does not have a lot of power. You want to make sure the ball is hit over your head for it to be extra bases. Move back a couple of steps, try to cut it off in the gap, save a run.
Fouled out of play again, and the count goes to 3-2.
Looks like Fletcher is using like a U1. U1 is a bat type. Pretty narrow handle, big barrel. Frank Thomas at first will be off with the delivery.
Full count, 2 out.
Yeah, difference between 3-2 and 2-2. Just a little nuance, but makes a big difference. Much better jump by the runner. The minute you start your windup, he's off.
There he goes, and the pitch is hit on the ground to second. Manny Lee to Fred McGriff, and the inning is over. 1 hit, 1 left in the 7th. Still a 1-1 tie after 6.5. Fun time at the ballpark. And a typical huge crowd, in excess of 45,000 probably here at SkyDome tonight. A 1-1 tie going to the bottom of the 7th inning. And the fans enjoying their traditional 7th inning stretch. Toronto will have Greg Myers, Rob Ducey, and Manny Lee against Merlito Perez in the 7th. Curveball, high, ball 1. Myers has walked and struck out swinging.
Only has 4 home runs, but a good low ball hitter. I'd characterize him as a pull hitter in most situations.
It's this one to center field, in the air for Lance Johnson. 1 away.
Well, you brought a point earlier. Pat Borders, the other catcher, plays against lefties and plays really most of the time. He's got 14 home runs. Greg Myers has 4, so that's 18 for the catching staff. But yet they don't have the experience that Ernie Witt had. They throw better. The composition of both of them are better numbers, but again, that intangible. You got a guy struggling on the mound. Can you come out as a catcher and give him the right words?
Scream at him, as Carlton
well,
would say.
sometimes, yeah.
Rob Ducey tonight has reached on a fielder's choice and struck out swinging, 0 for 2. Ball 1.
Asked Carlton what his job to do for the White Sox pitcher. He says, first of all, he says, is make sure the game goes at least 3 hours. Make all the concession people happy. And then we go on from there.
One and one to Ducey. Foul back. 1 and 2. Rob Ducey's seen his average plummet tonight as you look at Gene Tennis, the hitting coach, talking about hitting right there with Mookie Wilson. Ducey came into the game hitting .600, and with his 0 for 2, he has fallen like a rock to .429. He's 3 for 7 in the big leagues this
hit
year.
.267 at Syracuse at AAA. 7 home runs.
Chases it in the dirt, and Fisk will have to throw down to Thomas to complete the strikeout for out number 2.
The reason you saw Fisk run right out in front of home plate to get that good angle. So he does, even though the runner has to run the last 45 feet in an area that is really on all fields painted in, you want to have the good angle if you're a catcher, because if you throw it away, it can be at least 2, maybe 3 bases. Carlton just smothered the split finger and then got the good angle for the second out.
Boy, there's a view from the top of the retracted roof. Look at hazard duty pay for that cameraman. 2 out, nobody on for Manny Lee. He is struck out and flying to left, and he takes low for ball 1.
Melito Perez with 7 strikeouts, his career high on 2 occasions, 12. Well, pretty simple formula. Get ahead with a fastball and a curveball, and then throw the split finger.
Here he's broken that formula. He's fallen behind 2 balls and no strikes to lead. But he has pitched extremely well. The only 2 hits Toronto has managed came back-to-back in the 6th inning with 2 out. A double by Gruber, and then the RBI single by McGriff that scored Gruber for the only run. A 1-1 tie in the 7th.
Well, you see action in the bullpen. Number 1, Perez has thrown a lot of pitches, and if you're Jeff Torborg and you're the manager of the White Sox, well, you got Barry Jones, who's 11-1, and you got a real good bullpen. You can't go too deep with your pitching staff in September. You got to win. You worry more about the wins than making your pitchers happy.
And here's Manny Lee, who's hitting about .230, only .195 since the All-Star break, and Perez walks him with 2 out. That is the 4th walk issued by Melito Perez. And as Jeff Torborg looks on, it'll bring up Junior Felix. Terry Bevington right there is positioning the Chicago defense. He's the third base coach, but he also, when Toronto's in the field, acts as the defensive coordinator.
Well, we talked about how well the White Sox play, and the big difference I can see, better pitching, but also a much better defense. This is a team, the White Sox, that made 151 errors last year.
Pitching and defense have made the difference for Chicago. Junior Felix is grounded to second and struck out. Also 0 for 2.
This year only 106. Again, how many more balls did they get to because of that excellent team speed?
Blew the fastball right by him. 0-2. Now is when the wheels start grinding in both dugouts. Not only what do I do with the bullpen, when do I do it, but as you get into the late innings of a tie game, what do you do offensively? You start runners. Pitch out. Fisk was looking for something, but Manny Lee was not running.
And also the point we talked about earlier, what can your players do for you? Can they bunt? Can they hit and run? Can they move runners? Can they do the things that you'd like to do? But if you're a manager, even though the strategy, as we talked about, may call for a bunt, can the guy bunt?
Yeah. And we've also talked about how Toronto has struggled to do the fundamental things that you need to do to win. Boy, Fisk almost got crossed up there. 2-2.
The overwhelming feeling, even if you talk to George Bell, he's not playing tonight, he says we do things as individuals. We don't do things as a team. And that is mirrored in their record.
That has hurt them. In fact, Tony Fernandez was quoted the other day in the local newspaper as talking about how that is the #1 problem on the team. But at the same time, almost ironically, his big complaint was that he personally wasn't having the kind of year that he had hoped for.
Well, you know, it is a team game made up of individual performance, and I guess he's very disappointed when you come into the 1990 season almost hitting 300 at 292 lifetime, and you're only hitting 255, 256. You're not doing your job.
It gets through. Manny Lee will go to third and be held there. A 2-out base hit by Junior Felix. And Toronto gets the go-ahead run to third base here in the 7th inning.
Yeah, harmless 2-out single, except that what did you do? You walked Manny Lee, so no longer does it become harmless. No longer does it become just an incidental base hit if you're Jeff Torborg. Your job depends on what you do here. Do you leave him in? He's thrown a lot of pitches. You're trying to win a pennant. That's just a bounding ball that happens to find a seam, as they say. It's almost a football term, seam in the defense. Well, that found a seam in this defense.
But it puts runners at first and third for Mookie Wilson, who is 0 for 3. He's grounded out twice and struck out. A strike on the outside corner.
Steve, there is a huge gap. I like to say right center, but almost dead center field to Mookie Wilson. If he hits one just a couple of feet to the right, I mean, look where the left fielder is over in left center. There is a huge gaping hole. They don't anticipate him pulling the ball down the right field line. Straight away could be trouble.
And Mookie fouls it back the other way, and it's 0-2.
And to make this kind of move, you got to have your advanced scouts giving you pretty good information that maybe Mookie's bat slowing down a little bit, especially this time of the year. It also tells me you're not going to throw him anything soft. Throw him a hanging curveball and he hits it up the gap.
That's right.
You pitch against your defense.
Let's see if they do it. You see it all too often. Pitchers pitching against the defense. With Fisk, however, you would tend to think not. And there's a high fastball.
Well, that was a fastball, and he tried to move in. But again, you don't want to move in too early if you're a catcher, because the hitter can see that. I'll tell you, hitters will say you can sense the guy that has moved underneath you.
And a lot of hitters peek.
Yeah, they'd like to get Mookie out the way most guys like to get him out, with balls. Especially here with 1 ball, 2 strike count.
High and away. 2-2. The other problem you run into if you want to throw him a breaking ball in the dirt or something that Mookie has a tendency to swing at is you've got a runner at third base. Well, that represents the go-ahead run in the 7th inning. So how much of a chance are you willing to take? Breaking ball, loop to left field. Calderon won't get there. Here comes Junior Felix. He will score. Mookie Wilson with a 2-out, 2-run double, and it's a 3-1 Toronto lead.
You talked about the breaking ball. Well, he threw it. The curveball up in the strike zone. Maybe the runner on third had something to do with it. I think he's a little bit tired. That's why Torborg's coming out, but he just hit it up the gap. Again, if you're going to play him around that much, you got to throw him hard stuff. And they did. That's just a hanging curveball out over the plate. He just went with it. They lead 3-1.
Mookie didn't hit it to the big gap. He hit it to the small gap and still got it through. So while a pitching change is made and the Blue Jays have taken a 2-run lead here in the 7th, we'll take a timeout with Toronto leading Chicago 3-1. Ah, yes, when you're up and winning and leading, things are fun. Looks like Kenny Williams with the foot in the air. In the Toronto dugout as Chicago brings in Kenny Patterson. Alito Perez finding that 3rd out in the 7th inning to be one of those elusive ones we talked about earlier. Patterson making his 36th appearance. And he will face Tony Fernandez with Mookie Wilson at 2nd and 2 out. Jammed and fouled on a play. Strike 1.
Well, probably what I would consider the 2nd best bullpen in the American League, right behind Oakland. That's the Chicago White Sox. Kenny Patterson 6-1 last year, 2-1 this year. So 8-2 for Jeff Torborg. And the big curveball. We already saw the fastball. How did Thigpen ever let him get that one save?
Well, he'll get enough. He's got enough. He can afford to give one away.
He's got enough for about 3 or 4 years for some pitchers.
Well, I read something the other day where he has more saves than any other team with the exception of Oakland.
And they have Dennis Eckersley.
1 ball, 1 strike. And there's Thigpen in the bullpen with the
third
jacket.
From the right, yes.
On the ground to 3rd, Robin Ventura. And the inning is finally over. But a big 2-out rally with a walk, a single, and a 2-run double by Mookie Wilson makes it 3-1 Toronto.
Things are not getting much better for the New York Mets in Philadelphia. Musselman on in relief of Cone. Charlie Hayes, the pinch hitter, just gets it through. Morandini scores. Lenny Dykstra goes into 3rd, and then Vaughn Hayes would score him with 3 straight singles. It's 4-1 back to Toronto.
Thank you, John. Boy, those Mets can't seem to score or win away from shade. They need that home cooking. Right here, Toronto with a little home cooking. 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th to take a 3-1 lead. And in the 8th inning, Ozzie Guillen leads it off against Todd Stottlemyre. 1 ball, 1 strike. Rounded to McGriff. 1 away. A reminder, game 2 of our Friday night doubleheader yet to come. And we'll be sending you out to Gary Thorne and Norm Hitchkiss in Los Angeles, where the Cincinnati Reds will be meeting the Dodgers as soon as we're through here in Toronto. So stay with us on our Friday night ESPN Baseball Tonight doubleheader. There's one of the biggest TV screens you'll ever see. Everything about this place is big, including the noise level of the crowd. Lance Johnson 0 for 3.
How'd you get in here today?
They had to open the roof.
Yeah. Wonder why it was open.
Yeah.
White Sox last along with Seattle in home runs, so they will have to do it usually some other way than going with a long ball. Last year, the only team in baseball that did not hit over 100 home runs.
This year, they have 90 at this point.
You know, some people think it's Walt Riniak's style of hitting. A lot of people think it's Comiskey Park. It's a big ballpark.
It
Wind
is.
usually blows in a lot of room down the left and right field line. It's almost 345 to the fences.
I really think, though, that it's got to be difficult to hit a lot of home runs with that style of hitting when you're hitting out over your front foot, hitting down and through the ball. And home runs will come, but it's not designed. And you can see Lance Johnson employing that technique right there.
Now, I would assume the 90 home runs that were hit also, that's minus 17 from Ron Kittle, who was traded to the Orioles. So that's 25. When he got traded, that was 25% of the home run total of the White Sox.
And even though there are 4 weeks left in the season, they may not get to 100 this year. 3-2. And when you think about the fact that right now, as you pointed out earlier, Carlton Fisk leads the club with 15. The home runs are not fast and furious. Only Calderon and Pascual Sosa have double figures home run totals. Johnson with a fly ball to center field. Mookie broke in and he has to go back, but he gets there.
Well, the reason Mookie plays so deep, he is most outfielders, it's easier for him to come in. But he's always been a pretty good outfielder. So even though you initially come in, when a guy like Lance Johnson hits it, you have a lot of room, especially to center field. Well, he gets back and runs it down for the second out.
Mookie may not be able to throw all that well, and he's certainly not the biggest guy around, but his fundamentals and techniques in the outfield are about as good as you can get. Robin Ventura takes a strike. He is 1 for 3.
We saw Greg Jeffries talk about reading the ball at third base. He's having a problem doing it, and it's shown in the last week for the Mets. Reading the ball off the bat, if you're an infielder or an outfielder, is so important. If you're a pitcher, reading how a batter reacts to you is equally as important. But if you can't tell how the ball comes off the bat, you're never going to be a good outfielder or infielder.
It's that first step that's most important. Ventura with a ground ball to first. McGriff to Stottlemyre, and the inning is over. Todd Stottlemyre retires Chicago in order in the 8th inning, and Toronto still leads by 2. Oh, it's a great sight. And if the roof wasn't open, we couldn't see it. A nearly full moon as we go to the bottom of the 8th inning, and Kelly Gruber leads it off for Toronto as the Blue Jays lead it 3-1. Ball 1 to Gruber as Ken Patterson works in relief of Melito Perez, who went 6 2/3. Fly ball center field. Lance Johnson has room. 1 away. Blue Jays' power has been waning. They have 148 home runs. That is second in the major leagues to Detroit's 152, and one more than the Mets, who lead the National League. But look at how it's tailed off since June.
I got to think it has something to do with opening the dome. I mean, we were here. We saw everybody that came to the plate back in April was a home run threat.
Yeah.
In fact, I did an Oriole game where Gruber hit one down the right field line. And of course, he had a terrific first half. He hit it behind him. Oh, I said routine fly ball to right field. It's about 40 rows back. That's the way the ball was carrying. I got to think that the ball does not carry quite as well. But it doesn't matter with this guy. When he hits them, they go.
That's it.
Former Yankee.
Well, maybe what you need to do here is, on a night like tonight, maybe when you're playing a team like Chicago that doesn't hit many home runs, keep the roof closed, and you have the advantage. If in fact the ball does carry better with the roof closed. Then on a night when Oakland,
you can do that too.
Right, on a night when Oakland comes to town, maybe you could open the roof. You open the roof.
I always thought you'd make a good general manager.
Slow down Canseco and McGuire and the boys.
Well, that's tough to do.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're like McGriff. They're going to hit home runs no matter what. But if you have the advantage and the ability to take the advantage, why not use it? The problem is, can you really say that having the roof open or closed makes that much of a difference? I don't think there's been enough time. Off Patterson, who knocked it down. It was a bullet, but it's out number 2.
It's got to be left-handed. Well, as they say, when you release it, you become a fielder. A slow-mo. Well, off the heel. It does pay to pay attention once you release it.
Yeah.
Well, really not too bad of a fielding position.
Fisk wanted to go out and make sure he's all right. I mean, Patterson went through with the play very nonchalantly, but you know his life passed before his eyes.
It's true, and I'll tell you what it does. It makes your concentration that much more acute to the next hitter. I saw Dave McNally get hit in the ear by Chris Chambliss, and I was pitching the second game of the doubleheader. I went out there. I ended up pitching a one-hitter. George Hendricks got the only base hit. But I'll tell you what, I followed through and followed every ball off the bat. And then again, you get very nonchalant every once in a while. You just don't assume the ball is going to be hit back to you. You should. It's kind of like playing the net in tennis. When
always
you're playing double, assume the ball's coming to you. A lot of pitchers, though, will say, what's more important, afterwards or before?
Well,
so they try to get everything into it.
A guy like Bob Gibson would have virtually his back to the mound after he threw a pitch. he just followed through with so much effort.
And I'll tell you what, every time a ball goes over the rubber into center field, looks like it's Tom Henke, and the closer here. He saved 26 out of 29. He's had a real good year too. Of course, kind of pales when you compare Henke with his 94-mile-per-hour fastball to what Bobby Thigpen has done with 48 saves. But anytime a ball goes over the rubber into center field after you've thrown the ball, you get a little frustrated, a little disappointed that you did not have better fielding mechanics.
Olerud walks again. Third time in the game in 4 trips to the plate that he has walked. He struck out his other time up, so he's 0 for 1. First walk issued by Patterson, and Olerud at first with 2 out for Greg Myers.
Olerud has enough personal. There's Bat Borders. He's coming on to pinch hit against the lefty Ken Patterson. Greg Myers started the ball game. He plays when he does against right-handers. 14 home runs. Having a real good year.
Hitting .289. As a pinch hitter, he's 4 for 19. But he does have 2 pinch hit RBIs.
Good fastball hitter, a pull hitter. Likes to hit the ball, get the bat out in front.
And they pitch him away right on the outside corner for strike 1. Inside, 1-1.
You know, it's such an interesting thing. When I had a chance to do Oriole games last year, when they went from 107 losses to winning 87, everybody wondered what they would do this year, and they were playing pretty well, even though a little bit under 500 until they had a lot of injuries. I think the big question is, what will the White Sox do in 91?
Yep. Sammy Sosa camps under it, and the inning is over. A walk and 1 left in the 8th inning for Toronto, and they take their 2-run lead, 3-1 into the 9th. Tom Henke is on to try to close it out in the 9th inning for Toronto, as Todd Stottlemyre leaves after 8, giving up a run on 4 hits. He struck out 5 and walked 2. But this is the closer, and he's in there.
Yeah, from year to year, nothing really changes. Maybe the amount of appearances, but the stuff doesn't differ a lot. Overpowering fastball well into the 90s. Hard slider. He's got the split finger fastball to go along with that. And over the years has always been able to strike you out when he has to. I mean, I'm talking about a strikeout pitcher. 91 innings, 118 strikeouts. 93 innings, 128. This year, only a strikeout per inning.
Only.
So he's having an off year. He has failed to save only 3 games when he comes in and save opportunities. So as a hitter, you better get the bat ready, and that's what makes the other pitches he throws up there so devastating.
Start swinging when you leave the dugout.
And we already seen Ivan Calderon, who lead it off, try to fake a bunt. They're playing him back, and if you're trailing by 2, you want to get on if you're a leadoff hitter.
He can't hold up on the high inside fastball, strike 1. Henke making his 52nd appearance of the season. 26 saves and 29 attempts.
Yeah, last year he really turned it around for the Blue Jays. Cito Gaston using him much more regularly than Jimmy Williams did, and he had an incredible last 3 quarters of the season, but he had struggled early.
He'll be facing Calderon, Pasqua, and Fisk for Chicago here in the 9th. Toronto leading by 2. 2 balls, 1 strike.
Yeah, if you're the pitcher, nothing really happens until somebody gets on. We're not in a situation where the game can be tied. So if you're Ivan Calderon, you look at Kelly Gruber, you might think about bunting.
Just a little bit high. 3-1. And Henke.
Well, it's been a ball all night long. He's going to ask for another ball. Only time there's ever been any high pitches called, they were on breaking balls. And what a breaking ball does, it gives the umpire a little bit more time to look at it.
Plus it's going down,
You're right.
which gives you the impression it's going into or through the strike zone, even maybe when it doesn't.
This may not be a good matchup. Henke may not match up with the home plate umpire. It does happen.
Off the end of the bat, a short hop for Fred McGriff, who makes the play, 1 away. Well, our Budweiser storyline tonight, good pitching on both sides, but Mookie Wilson's 2-out 2-run double in the 7th inning, the difference in the game. Perez pitched well, although he gave up those 2 runs in the 7th with 2 out. Todd Stottlemyre, an outstanding 8 innings of work. And look at that, 2 runs only in the last almost 30 innings of work.
You're sitting at home, you wonder why Calderon did not take the 3-1 pitch. With Henke, I think the philosophy is you don't want to get to 2 strikes.
Yeah,
you can't
really
pick up. Yeah, you can't pick up the split finger. Even though it looked like he maybe swung at ball 4, it's not a comfortable guy to face with 2 strikes because you know he's just got overpowering stuff. He can fool you. He can throw it by you.
And you want more than one chance if you can get it. On the inside corner, Pasqua thought it was inside. 1 and 2.
The ball just ran back and caught the inside. And if he starts making good pitches, it's all over.
Pasqua tonight has flied out twice to left field on fine plays by Ducey and struck out. Grounded weakly to third. Gruber in, 2 away.
Just wrong foots him. Knows he has plenty of time. Doesn't get himself set. Again, these are plays that infielders practice so much coming in. Even if he makes a bad throw, he's going to have enough time probably to come off the bag and make the tag if it's down the line, and if it's a little bit to the outfield side, to come back and find the bag.
So it comes down to Carlton Fisk. Remind you that Cincinnati and Los Angeles follows as soon as we're through here in Toronto. Strike 1. We'll be sending you back to John Saunders in the studio and then out to Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles for the second half of our doubleheader. Fisk tonight has walked, single to center, and flied to left.
I also got to think that Tom Henke at 6'5" really hides the ball well. You know, all arms and legs. Even though he appears to be smooth, hitters never seem to appear that they really pick the ball up that well.
It's coming out of his uniform to a great degree. The Blue Jays need every win they can get, but then so do the Chicago White Sox.
Short ball.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
As much as if you're the White Sox, you want the Oakland A's to lose, and as much as if you're a Toronto Blue Jay, you want the Red Sox to lose, it all starts with how you play the final month. Can you come to the ballpark and play your best?
Slap to second. Manny Lee. Toronto with a 3-1 win over the White Sox in the battle of the American League second place teams. And Jim, at the beginning of the telecast, we talked about how Chicago had been coming to the park maybe a little more prepared to play than Toronto. Tonight, the Blue Jays got the big hit when they needed it, and that was the difference in a very tight game.
Well, it certainly was. Mookie Wilson with the big the double up the gap in left center, and of course an outstanding pitching performance from Todd Stottlemyre. And again, you know, here's a team that even without George Bell, they win when they're not at their best.
So the Blue Jays win the first of this battle of the second place teams. We'll send you now back to John Saunders. For Jim Palmer, this is Steve Zabriskie saying so long from Toronto.
Okay, thanks a lot, Steve and Jim. 3-1 is the final. The Blue Jays coming back in a game they were down. Now, the Jays 5 games back right now pending the outcome of the Boston Red Sox game. They've won 6 of their last 8. The White Sox fall to 7 back of the Oakland A's pending the outcome of their game with the New York Yankees, and the A's are up right now. We want to remind you, at 10:30 Eastern time, about 15 minutes, we'll go to the battle in the National League West. Number 1 against number 2, the Cincinnati Reds and Los Angeles Dodgers. Jose Rio against Jim Neidlinger. Both teams actually struggling right now. They've both lost 3 of their last 4 games. The Reds with a 6.5 game lead coming into this 3-game series. Gary Thorne and Norm Hitzges standing by in about 15 minutes. But first, some scores and highlights. We will start at Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox were hosting the Seattle Mariners. They came in with a 5.5 game lead over the team you just saw won, the Toronto Blue Jays. Mike Boddicker facing Ken Griffey Sr., and he sends this one into the bullpen. His first home run as a Mariner. Seattle's up 1-0. In the third, it's a 3-1 game. Wade Boggs with a couple of runners on, slaps this one, just gets through the hole. Reed and Quintana score to tie the game at 3. But in the 8th, 4-3 Mariners with the bases loaded. Swift to Mike Marshall, 6-4-3, the double play. The Mariners get out of that inning, and they have the lead 4-3 in the 9th inning. And what a night it's been for Ken Griffey Sr. 4 for 5 with that home run, 2 runs batted in, as they're up 4-3 thanks to him. Wade Boggs, 2 runs batted in for Boston. Seattle's won 5 of their last 6. They would get to the 500 mark. Remember, they have never finished above the 500 mark in the history of the franchise. They came into the league with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1977. More bad news for Boston if they lose the game, but not as bad as they got today. Rocket Roger Clemens, their 20-game winner, could be gone for the season. They are not sure. Boston doctors say he has 2 strained tendons in his pitching arm. Clemens says, quite simply, he tried to do too much this week against the Oakland A's.
I just overdid it this time, and I finally kind of met my match. As far as my own self is concerned, I think I found my limitations. If that makes sense to y'all.
Dr. Arthur Pappas, the doctor of the Boston Red Sox, says he's actually not sure how long Clemens will be gone, but he will definitely miss his start this weekend. Let's move along now. The Oakland A's rolling. They actually rolled in Boston over Roger Clemens earlier this week. Now they move into Yankee Stadium to face the New York Yankees, who have struggled all year. Mark McGwire, number 35 on the season, to tie the game at 1. From then on, it was mostly all Oakland. Top of the 6th, Ricky Henderson running on the pitch. Willie McGee drives him home with a base hit to right. It's just a 2-1 game. Back-to-back walks move McGee to third. And brings in Carney Lansford. Grounding to Balboni, who tries to come home but throws it away. And Canseco trots in. 4-1, the A's are up. Stump can only look on with his buddy Mel Hall. And watch Andy Hawkins walk 5 batters in the 5th inning. McGwire has 2 runs batted in. Canseco has hit his 36th home run. Oakland scored 6 runs in the 5th on 4 hits, 6 walks, 1 error, and a wild pitch. Oakland's beaten New York all 9 times they have played this year. So let's take a look right now how things are standing in the American League. The Boston Red Sox lead over the Toronto Blue Jays is at 5. The Jays a winner over the White Sox. You just saw that. Boston down to Seattle. It would get to 4.5 should Boston lose to Seattle. Oakland's lead over Chicago at 7 because the White Sox have lost already tonight. Oakland's lead would go to 7.5 should they hang on and beat the New York Yankees, which seems very likely. Let's move to the National League now. The Montreal Expos facing the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates on a roll. They swept the New York Mets, but the Expos do not believe they are out of this. 9.5 games back to start the night. They knew they'd have to go into Pittsburgh and come up with a sweep to stay in things. And Oil Can Boyd with the bunt. Bream throws it into left field. Junior Noboa scores. Mike Fitzgerald scores. 2-1 is the score. The Expos are on top. Meantime, in the 6th inning, Smiley to Noboa. The double to left. Tim Wallach comes in. Larry Walker trying to score as well. But the Pirates with a nice relay from Bell. LaValliere with the tag. Walker is out at the plate. In the 7th, Jerry Royce. Since 1978, hadn't appeared as a Pittsburgh Pirate. Walker grounds into what could be a double play, but Grissom scores as Walker beats it out on the fielder's choice. Oil Can Boyd, his first ever appearance against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 7 innings, allowing only 1 run, 3 hits. Pittsburgh has won 6 games in a row. They came in with a 3.5 game lead. The New York Mets, who had lost 4 consecutive games, turn it over to David Cone to halt their skid at the Phillies. Cone brings his good stuff. John Kruk has gone once, gone twice, gone 3 times. Cone would strike out 12 in only 6 1/3. But Lenny Dykstra against his former teammates gets the uniform dirty, and that means he's scoring some runs. Dale Murphy rips a 2-out single to left. Dykstra challenging McReynolds. Just beats the throw at the plate as he dives in to tie the game at 1. In the 3rd, looks like a replay. Dale Murphy again. Again, McReynolds with the throw. Again, not in time for Dykstra, who dives in there as the Phillies take a 2-1 lead. They were not done. They'd add to it. 4-1 is the score now in the 8th inning. Murphy with 2 runs batted in. Dykstra with 3 hits, and has scored 2 runs for the Phillies. The Mets have lost 4 games in a row. It could be 5, and you'll recall They won 7 in a row before going into that skid. So in the National League, here's how things look. The Pittsburgh Pirates lead 3.5 to start the night, but they are down to the Montreal Expos, who could get it back to 8.5. The New York Mets, though, are down. They'd stay at 3.5 if things stayed the way they were right now. Cincinnati and Los Angeles, it's just a 6.5 game lead going into a 3-game series in Los Angeles. The Dodgers really thinking sweep to get back to 3.5 games, but they also have 3 games in Cincinnati later on in the week. So this is going to be a key battle coming up in just a few moments on ESPN's Baseball Tonight. Stay with us. We will get to that game in about 10 minutes' time. But in the meantime, once again, we'll remind you the Toronto Blue Jays, a winner over the Chicago White Sox. 3-1 was the final on Mookie Wilson's double with 2 gone, bringing in 2 runs to break the 1-1 tie. We'll be back with more in a moment.